Nothing prevents you from running, and so I did. But that meant that he had to pull more than his weight managing the household, sports, school, cooking, laundry, and kids. So much laundry. For months, so I could focus on the campaign. Thank you, I love you and appreciate you, and you are my person. I don't know what you thought we'd be doing on our 10-year anniversary, but I'm sure it wasn't knocking doors until 8:30 at night. To all the neighbors out there who answered their door for a stranger with a smile and spent time talking to me about their families, feedback, and memories. Thank you for sharing your incredible insights and experiences with me. Thank you for the water, the fruit, the tea, the coffee that kept me going, and for the encouraging words of positivity that fueled my passion. I can't thank you enough for voting for me. To my mom, who stopped every voter at the polls on November 5th to ask them to vote for their daughter, and who 30 years earlier took me and my brothers to council meetings at 6 years old so we could see what it was like to serve your community. You gave us a passion for public service and taught us to chase our dreams. Promise I'm all done. To all the moms, I dedicate this win to you. I hear you and I see you and how badly you want to get involved. As you talk to me at the door with a baby on your hip while you're cooking dinner, chasing around a 2-year-old who's naked after a long day in the office. I know how badly you want to scream when no one from the village responds to your multiple emails, or you spend precious time trying to find a piece of information on the website. Or you've lost power for the millionth time and there's zero mention of it. I know it was probably scary, and I know you're looking to be heard. I see you, and I'm going to make sure the village does too. We're not going to wait until our kids are older to get involved. We're going to do it now. We're going to do all the things and make sure you and your families are happy, healthy, and safe in Franklin. Thank you to Abby for being willing to make this your journey. You have a track record of taking leaps of faith. I respect you, and I'm so honored to serve alongside you. And finally, thank you to the voters, both who did and who didn't vote for me. You exercised your voice this past election, and I implore you to continue to do so by sharing your ideas with me. My position is to serve you, and I'll work tirelessly to earn that opportunity the next 4 years. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angelina. That was great. All right. So we are actually going to get a budget presentation right now. I didn't see that snuck in there. So our representative from Plant Moran.
Good evening, everybody. So this is actually a budget amendment that we have before you. So my name is Carrie Shea. I'm a partner with Plant Moran. And this is Brittany Kohler. She is your main consultant who works with the village on a weekly basis. Before you, we have a budget amendment for fiscal 25. So still several months out, but some things that have occurred that we wanted to go ahead and put before you as an adjustment for a vote. Obviously, this is not the end of the year, so there will be subsequent amendments after this, but wanted to cover a few key things for you. The document, I don't know if you can see mine.
I don't think we have it.
Yeah, are we missing something? I don't think any of us saw this. Was it
Can
on
you
our,
pull it up on the screen?
yeah, let's just pull it up on the screen. Go ahead, give us an overview of what categories we're amending.
Sure, I can do that. So the key ones that I'll talk about, I can start with one that's kind of theoretically larger so that, while that's pulled up, there is an adjustment in the police fund to reflect the new contracts and the adjustment of removing a part-time officer and putting in a full-time officer. Hopefully, if I'm telling you what you already know, please let me know, but being new to the council, so the police fund and the general fund really work hand in hand quite closely. So a lot of the police fund is funded by a transfer out of the general fund, so it's very much expected that if there's adjustments within the police fund, that there's a reflected transfer in or transfer out, depending on the direction of that from the general fund. And so just as we go through amendments, that'll always kind of be the fluctuation that you'll notice. So because of this increase of an expenditures of about $189,000 in the police fund, there was also a capital increase as well. That was related to the generator and then the rental of the generator while that was getting in place. That then has caused the general fund to have a $245,000 estimated transfer out to cover those additional expenditures within the police fund.
In that adjustment of 189,000 less the generator.
The generator's an additional
Right,
55,000.
but 6 months.
That is inclusive of what we anticipate is needed of those adjustments to personnel for the year.
For the year. Okay.
Do we split these costs with Bingham Farms?
No, not for police.
That's not, the contract for Bingham Farms outlines the services that we provide and they pay us an X dollar amount. It's not an apples to apples even split. We have an allocation that they've engaged a contract with us to give us, but it doesn't equate directly to expenses like that.
So when these like unintended expenses arise, do we go back to them?
Yep, it
Okay.
definitely depends on what it is, but there are times when, I think Code Red is a really good example. It's a communication service that we're looking for. There's a cost for that. So before we even really broach that topic, we've been talking to Bingham Farms because they would have a financial obligation with that as well.
But I
So-
think, sorry, what Angelina's asking, or not to speak for you, but what I'm hearing or what is coming top of mind for me is the fact that if a majority, it sounds like, of the 189 is from moving from a part-time to a full-time, which would provide a benefit to Bingham Farms as well, and they're not paying that cost.
Well, they would, those things would be considered when the contract is renegotiated with Bingham Farms. They could
I
expect.
thought it was based off of
but-
percentages.
We have chief here, but I don't believe that that's the case. The Bingham Farms engages with us and has a flat fee that they pay towards us, and those things are negotiated when we go through that contracting process.
What's the contract cycle? When is it up for renegotiation?
I'm not sure when this one is up with Bingham Farms.
We just signed a new
I feel
one.
like we
Yeah.
just signed it.
I don't think, I don't have that, it's
Well-
up right now.
There's two different items that we're talking about. The budget items that are necessary for an increased officer, and that would be something that would be shared with Bingham Farms, since they share in the overall cost of the police workforce. However, I'm thinking capital improvements to the asset, which we own entirely,
Right.
are gonna be costs that are all ours, because they don't own part of the building, so the generator and the
And like the
furnaces,
furnace we pay?
Yep.
those are gonna be our expenses, because that's our asset. But you would, if we have increased costs in the police workforce, I do believe, I have it in the folder. I think David's right, I think they might pay a percentage as opposed to
Right.
a flat fee.
I think we negotiated in March or April of this year.
Right.
And was that negotiated in anticipation of this to go from part to full-time? Was that a part of this particular discussion?
I don't
Probably
remember that
not,
being
right?
part of the
Officer
conversation.
Lawson?
No, it wouldn't have been.
No,
Do you-
no.
Yeah, neither of us would have
Bingham
been
Farms
part
does
of
not
those.
get involved in our contract negotiations or anything we do with the police department. It's our police department that they share in the costs of, and we call it both of our police department. But the only question is their allocation a flat fee or a percentage?
I would like to see if we have the ability in the contract to go back to them to ask for additional funds to supplement for their portion of the salary.
35% of the police budget, less certain payments.
Yeah.
Right. And the 35%, just so people are aware, is based off of land mass, so we are larger than Bingham Farms, and so the area that is, that the officers are driving in, I believe when I was reviewing the contract, that's kind of how they landed on it, was that we're a bigger area, and for that larger service, we're paying the majority. As well as David noted, the assets are ours.
I need a little bit more context to absorb this.
Yeah.
It's a big amount of money. So we recently approved our operating budget for 2024-25. And in that budget was, I believe it was an increase of 4% for most positions that already is in the budget.
Right.
So are you coming to us, and maybe this is to you, Meg, are you coming to us asking for an additional 4%? Or did we error in our budgeting? What,
So-
why are we doing this?
Yep, I can answer that. During the budget process, we had budgeted for, I think it was 4 part-time positions, and after the budget was adopted, to my understanding, council approved removing those part-time positions and going to 1 additional full-time position. That was after the budget was adopted. So this budget amendment is to bring the budget in line with the additional cost that comes with going from part-time positions to a full-time officer position.
Part-time to 1 full-time. I'm gonna have to see the math on
We
that. I
can,
mean. I know
it
it's-
also brings the budget in line with the new chief's contract. So part of that, 180,000, it includes the additional cost for the new chief, and then healthcare costs for the part-time, or the full-time position that wouldn't have been offered to a part-time position.
Okay.
I guess this is for Chief. The goal is to have full-time officers. So like next year, when we're budgeting, are there any more part-time officers that we want to move to full-time? Okay. Because just so that next year we can put it in the budget, because I imagine you prefer full-time officers.
I do
Okay.
prefer, highly recommend that. So currently, right now, we don't have any more part-time people.
Okay.
We have 11 full-time, and we're budgeted for 12. And we have not filled that position, and I don't see us filling that anytime in the next month or anything like that. So, but I think what they were explaining is that, healthcare costs, my new contract, and the potential as we move forward to have that 12th officer.
And once you move to full-time, it triggers additional costs with benefits and healthcare because they get,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. Okay, no, I approve it. That's fine.
Okay, so the full amount of money that you're asking for right now, is that all allocated to the readjustment of having a full-time officer, or is some of that, I think like that $189,000 number you said, is part of that the anticipation of the generator and the 3 furnaces?
No, the generator is an additional 50,000.
On top of that?
Yes.
And we've already allocated money for that out of what's already in the budget.
That was a cost that
Yeah.
wasn't anticipated when we were going through the budget process last year.
Correct, but when we approved the generator, we said we were moving part of that $140,000 we had set aside to that. So that should have stayed within the budget.
We moved it from the general fund though over as that capital expense.
What's our general fund sit at right now?
So
You're sit at as far as the budget, like
No,
net income?
no.
Or total fund balance?
Total fund balance.
So as of today, I don't have that at the ready. I know where you were. You were at 1.2. This budget amendment takes you to 929,000.
And have we been operating over the past 3 years I guess we had the Headley override. My point is that I feel like we're going down a dangerous path. So,
I mean, there's definitely a revenue situation
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
been
we know
happening
that.
in Franklin for years
but we're not
and
doing
years.
anything about it.
Well,
I mean, I get it that that's a hyperbolic statement, but at the same time, like, how many years, based off of what we're spending compared to
Yeah.
what we're bringing in, how long before our general fund is depleted?
2029. And so, working on revenue strategies now might not be the right forum
No, I
to
get it.
talk about those. But since I've come in, revenue strategy is one of my top priorities. And because the general fund's largest constraint is public safety, it takes about 90% of our general fund goes directly to public safety. I think that when we get to our strategic planning portion of council, that will take place in January sometime towards the end of the month, then it's one of the things we need to talk about is possibly looking at some sort of public safety millage. Right now, 90% plus, I mean, what is it? Is it 95% of our general fund goes to public safety?
It's probably close to 90.
Okay, So 90% of our general fund is going directly to public safety, and those costs are continuing to increase as technology is changing, as recruitments are becoming more and more difficult. And so really, when I'm looking at this as your new administrator, I'm seeing your revenue issue right there. And that's where we're going to have to think of a solution. But it's definitely something that even Chief Lawson and I talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
weekly, and I will have, more information for council to really look at and see that impact and to decide a path forward when we get to our strategic planning section.
Yeah, that's helpful, and it's just like, as we prepare for the next budget, again, I think that this is something that Pam's previously highlighted, but the importance of having a really distilled down, easily consumable thing for the general populace, because if we get to the point where we have to go for a budget
Yes.
millage, or a millage increase, whether it be to the general fund or for public services, we need to kind of tell that story very clearly, so.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. I think that community engagement is the most important part of any sort of ask for a millage. And I have already begun strategizing on different ways to do that. And I can honestly say that me looking historically in this village, I don't know that we've ever done a great job at
Yeah,
engaging
right.
our community when we had a need. And so really being able to not only demonstrate the need, but show how our solution is gonna tie into that and help is all part of this strategy. We have until about 2029, and that's not long at all. I'm not taking it lightly, I'm not sitting on that, but I have only been your administrator for 2 months.
For sure. No, I appreciate it, thank you.
One item to clarify, if I may. So with this amendment, I was able to do the quick math. So it would be about 55% of the general fund that's going over to public safety.
Okay,
So
That doesn't look right. That seems too low.
Well, so
the
if I'm getting the number right, that's 90 minus the 35 reimbursement from Bingham Farms, probably.
yep.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Dana, can
If you could
can you-
down a little?
Yeah, change the view. I think this is helpful. We should look at, go down into where we were talking about police.
Just a little bit, there you go, just a little further.
Here we go.
That's the 189,000 breakout.
Is this the current approved 24-25 operating budget?
This is
number
the
right here.
amendment document.
This
that
is the
was prepared.
I think
amendment?
that's our
Correct.
shortfall.
Overtime holiday.
If you scroll just a hair down, you'll see the total, the current amended budget total for the police
Dana?
department is 2.3 million, right there. So
Okay.
this is the total right now, that's the increase, and then that would be the total expenses after the amendment.
Oh, so it was, so. okay.
2.3 was what you originally budgeted
Yeah.
for fiscal '25.
Okay. I'm struggling to understand, and right now I'm gonna vote no, but help me not do that.
So
So-
we
We
was
will scroll back up a little bit so they can give those allocations.
Tell me how the math works with 4 part-time people and transition, and converting that to 1 full-time person. Chief, our part-time people are paid benefits, is that correct?
No.
Or no? They're
No,
not,
no,
okay.
they're not.
So we're assuming benefits for 1 person, which is about 35% of their salary, is that about right? It's a big number.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're subtracting 4 part-time salaries. We're adding on 1 full-time salary plus benefits. We're accommodating the increase that we need for the chief for this current fiscal year.
correct.
And we are buying a generator
It's not part of
that's
it.
not part of this.
Further.
Okay, okay. So, here's a question. We knew we were hiring Kurt by this time. Did we miss the boat on adding to the police budget to accommodate a salary?
Yes.
We didn't,
I mean, I, of course, wasn't here during any
I
of those
understand,
discussions,
yeah.
but I can say that we have to amend the budget to accommodate that salary, and that to me says yes. It appears that when, and maybe you guys can speak to this during the budget process, but it appears to me that while we were budgeting, we were looking, at the salary we had been paying for chief, and we're not, I don't know what accommodations were made to anticipate that that would increase.
But Kurt was here for months before he took the chief's job. There should be no surprises there. Just as a point of my own perception. Okay, so we've got that. So the conversion to a one full-time plus benefits and the chief's salary is $187,000. It's $200,000. Is that
It's
what?
not just that, cause there's also some
There's some
office
supplies.
supplies and some
Yeah, training.
and some dues and some repairs. So, but yeah, in general, you know, I think these last few line items, the bulk of it is in that salary and benefits, but of course, I can see like another, 10, 11,000 that were for a miscellaneous on there.
Okay.
Do we have a opportunity to go back to Bingham Farms and try to recapture some of these funds? And like, if 35% is based on land mass, but we also pay for the infrastructure with the building, the generator, the furnace, they need a headquarters, a lot of the cars, all of that, I say, like, go back to them and say, we have a better trained police force now, we have a newer police chief, we have full-time committed officers, and we make the argument for the justification to increase the amount that they contribute. Because just from talking to residents, they really like and support the police department. And I know that they enjoy the small town privileges that we have of doing the checks on the houses and them coming to, your door if you have a 911 emergency. And I don't want to take that away from residents, but I also want maybe Bingham to see that our services have changed. And I know that the chief is committing more time and resources to community engagement and training and preparation, technology, and so I feel like we can make the justification for an increase in contribution from Bingham.
What's the 35%?
It is projected, so the agreement states that each year at budget preparation time, it doesn't go in the past, it goes in the future. It says each year at budget preparation time, police chief shall calculate the actual cost for the 2 designated special assessment district officers based on personnel, benefits, and other costs. And Bingham Farms shall pay 35% of that. So I don't think we can go back in the past and say, hey, we have a budget amendment and you guys need to pay for that. I think it's in the,
Yeah.
going forward. So
Right.
is that, Jared?
But to your point, the next time that this contract is negotiated with Bingham, it needs a full revamp and a full overhaul. A lot has changed in the way that those services are, the cost associated with them and the way they're provided.
Like,
So,
yeah, I mean, there's a breakdown of incidents and, traffic stops,
Yeah.
or what's the breakdown between the amount of those incidents that may happen in Franklin versus Bingham, or the amount of houses that might be in each municipality? Do we know?
What we pay is not based upon,
Well, sure, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
when we
result.
renegotiate that contract, if there is a lopsided incident response
Yeah.
need,
I looked at it slightly last time, it's not crazy. I mean, the special assessment district gets a lot of their attention, but they
They
pay
have
for,
2 full-time
they pay
officers,
for those
right?
2
Yeah.
officers.
For the SAD, yeah. Can we renegotiate for convenience, or do we have to wait until?
No, I think it's a
I
5-year term.
think we have to wait the full year.
Yeah, but what I want to make clear here is the 35%, the way that it's written, is only based off of what we approve initially within the budget year. So like, but it's not office supplies, or is it office supplies? Because my point is then we should be strategically hiring so that we're not doing it in the middle and sticking ourselves with the bill.
It says each year at budget preparation time, police chief shall calculate the actual cost for the 2 designated special assessment district officers to include personnel costs, and that includes holiday pay and overtime and stuff.
Is there anything outside of the special assessment district? Because that's Telegraph Road. So that's a limited area. We're still, and they provide additional funds for that purpose, but I would imagine that 35% should be for the coverage of their community. It's not like they're paying for just that district.
Benefits in that, and then other, which includes training, police supplies, police car operation, police vehicle insurance.
Just as a point of order, we are here to decide on a budget amendment.
And then,
And, forgive me, Peter.
Go ahead.
But I think we need to, it sounds like that's a topic. My recommendation is we set aside some time to do that, either in a workshop or as a part of a council meeting, but that we deal with this particular issue in front of us right now.
Curious, why are we seeking this budget amendment in the middle of the year when don't we normally kind of wait towards the end of the year and do all of our adjustments then?
Yes.
We need the actual cash?
We were trying to get, well, it's running in conjunction, and correct me if I'm wrong, the question was, why are we seeking this budget amendment in the middle of the year and not at the end? We're wrapping up in getting the audit taken care of, and so to give us some numbers for where we were looking and keep it up to date. Another task that we had been set on was to kind of look and see if there were availability of funds for any sort of short-term investments. In order for us to make an educated decision, know how much would be available for a short-term investment, we need to be able to shore up our numbers and kind of see where we were at. So I do think that was also one of the catalysts, but they can speak
Yeah.
to that too.
I mean, our process is to go through quarterly to see if there's anything of significance, and given that this contract is in place and these movements have been made, that it's appropriate to go ahead and reflect what's really already been done to move forward.
Real quick question. So if we don't approve this, or is the 189,000 reflective of anticipation of hiring that 12th officer?
Has that person been hired? Is that what you're
No.
asking?
Chief Lawson said that that person has not been hired. To my point, is this projecting that we're going to hire that person? Because, again, to my point, is if we only capture that 35%, if that budgeting is done at the beginning of the year, we're better off denying this, giving that increased compensation to Chief Lawson because he's currently employed, but pushing off that hiring until we can work it in to the next budget and then capture that 35%.
And I don't want to speak out of term, and Chief, I don't think you've done this process before, but it may also be worth looking, because in May, when we're doing the budget process, you have very close to actual numbers at that point. So it may be that those actuals are what is going over to be paid on the contract. We haven't been part of that, to my knowledge, of providing that, but it might be good to look at how that's being handled. It's just interesting of the timing, I would think in May, like that's because most of the year has happened. But again, I haven't read the contract and would defer to legal, but it might just be worth confirming what is being provided to Bingham.
Make a motion?
When was just for my information, when was the conversation around switching the 4 full-times to the full part-times to the full-time? When were these conversations? What was the catalyst for that change?
All that I remember from the conversations was it was brought up in the meeting. We asked from a cost perspective, and it sounded like it was gonna be a wash or close to, but I'm guessing that was just a representation of the cost of hiring that one person compared to like salary base
Yeah.
versus the 4 without doing these additional considerations. Because I don't think any of us would have been excited to move from 4 part-time to 1 full-time, knowing that it would cost us whatever it would cost, this substantial of a difference. That's all I remember.
And I cannot remember exactly when it was. I recall that it was as part of the budget
Budgeting.
discussions with with Chief Roberts prior to a budget approval, which would have been before June. Because that's when we approved the budget.
What we could do is take some of the information that we have here today and provide a more detailed analysis, bringing it back in January to go ahead and take a look at it. And at that point, you, as a council, you could decide if it was something that you wanted to approve or something that you wanted to wait until budget season. with exception, of course, of chief's current salary, that will need to be.
And I believe we have to submit an amendment, right, at some point. Are we required to do that?
You will need to amend at the latest before June 30 to stay in
Yeah.
accordance with
Yeah.
state law.
Which is how we normally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have
okay.
time
Yeah, we have the
there.
runway,
This
okay.
is falling here based on this idea that quarterly we look at it, so it's less at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
But I can see even myself not being part of any of these conversations and them all happening before I'm here. I would even like a better understanding. I think that I could do some work in the next month with Chief, and we can provide you with a little bit more information as to, that correlate to these figures, and then we could make a decision there. I would propose that we look at some of the other amendments that are suggested today and maybe put a pin in the PD one, and have me return with an analysis on that. But there are some others that are a little bit more clean cut, and if you're interested, we could look at those. Otherwise, we could postpone this whole conversation to
Can
January.
we take action on parts and not all of these amendments tonight?
Yes.
I would believe so. I
Okay.
would-
Okay.
My question is, if we come back to this, like, the facts don't change. You know, like, his
Yep.
staffing plan is full-time officers. It's a matter of, there was inaccurate forecasting
Yep.
by the, you know, in the FY '24 budget. And going forward, like, to Pete's point, you know, we have to, or your point, right, we have to, put more of a buffer and be in better communication and coordination with Chief and know what his vision is, because it's, every time I've met with him and since he's been hired, he's always stressed community engagement, training, full-time officers. So I knew that his plan was to include these things. Whether or not that was budgeted for
Right.
was really the issue of, like, the forecasting wasn't accurate and it didn't reflect his priorities. So I'm
The only-
inclined to approve this.
Sorry, the only other thing that I would like a summary of that contract so we actually know
Yeah.
what the terms are.
What's the, the costs around salaries? Because you talked about benefits and it's a very large percentage of costs. What's the plan year and at what point are benefits costs renegotiated or revisited during the year?
Well, the cost for benefits is actually increasing. Tomorrow, Chief, myself, and Susan are meeting with our representative to go over and talk about that. So I'm not sure how frequently that comes up, but I can tell you it's a conversation we're having this week about our upcoming costs that would be increasing. So we would know what that figure would be entering into the next budget season. So having that conversation tomorrow allows us to be better prepared for a budget conversation in May.
I do recall when we discussed this subject of the 12th officer and deciding to not pursue it, Chief did say that the counter of that is we now have to have the existing 11 officers cover that time, which meant we increased our holiday pay and our overtime pay. And I think at that time, we decided that it was still going to be less in overtime pay and holiday pay for the existing officers than to carry a new full-time officer. But again, when we revisit this during our next budgeting session, maybe knowing this information, maybe that's, because I see here, you know, an increase for holiday pay. You know, that could be part of what is the result of that not having that 12th officer is we never allocated having to have the existing officers cover that shift, if you will.
I think that's all interesting, and could definitely be part of it. I mean, and the other caveat to this is, you know, we're in a contract negotiation with our police. So we could sit and get all of this budget amendment nailed down and be right back here
Yeah.
in another 3 months at the end of the contract negotiation. So I do think that us taking some time at our next meeting just to look at police and talk public safety in that contract could be beneficial. But whatever the council would like to do, I do know that
What
some
I-
of the other amendments proposed are a lot more clean cut.
All right, so what I'd like to do is let's focus on the items that we can address right now that aren't $190,000. Let's get those in place. I mean, this one, this really was, this is hitting us right now.
Yep,
I mean, we didn't even have, you know, we weren't
this
even,
wasn't in our-
we weren't
We got
preparing for
it
this.
on Friday, Thursday or Friday. It looks like it didn't make it to your packet. Oh, this isn't something that we've had and picked over for a long time either. We just got this at the end
Yeah,
of last
let's
week.
focus on the low-hanging fruit right now that we know we can take care of, and let's revisit that. Again, obviously, we wanna make sure everyone's paid. That's not, you know, that can still go on. We're not out of money, but before we do a budget amendments, I'd like to get our hands around it a
Can I
little better.
move to approve the amendment for the chief, for the police amendment for all but the difference in the full-time officer?
Move to.
Yeah, to include.
So this would be to
Let's-
approve
He's
chief's
still gonna get
salary,
paid though.
correct?
Yeah, it's not an issue whether he's gonna get
Yeah.
paid.
Okay.
The issue would be is I would wanna make it really clean cut that chief's salary was removed from that, so, and because I don't know the exact numbers there, I would want us to have a really clean resolution. I think we're okay if we just table that part.
Yeah, I think we just table
We
that
should
part.
be okay.
And let's
gets
just
paid.
focus on a couple, yeah, that doesn't, it's not like we don't have the money, it's just,
Right.
it's just a budget
And you
allocation
still,
issue.
as far as budgeting before you spend, at this point, you're 6 months through the year, so you've budgeted a full year. You're not exceeding what's budgeted as long as we adjust it
Yeah.
in the.
His check's not
course.
gonna bounce.
No.
Better not.
That's not how it works.
So this section here is related to the village administrator's contract. So those are all the reflective adjustments of that and benefits for that total of the 29,000.
Okay, that's already been approved.
Yep.
This is just for the administrator position.
If you scroll down, there's an adjustment under contracted services under the village clerk. I'm sorry, I'm probably not in the mic. This $6,000 is related to the legal code review and adjusting.
Can I pause and go back
Sure.
up? You said just the administrator's salary? I think those are the administration salaries, including the deputy administrator. That's not just mine as the administrator. That wasn't very clear there. That, when it says salaries, is including the administrative salaries. It's extends beyond just myself.
So who's included in that? The
Susan
administration?
and Dana's positions are included in that. There are
Okay.
3.
So these are raises?
There were raises that were given to the clerk and to the deputy, and then I make 8.8% more than Roger did.
Yeah.
And worked that additional Friday, worked 20% more. than
And
Roger.
those salaries were approved by council?
Yeah,
The raises for,
I'm not part of that process.
Those are,
I don't
I
know.
think Roger gave those.
I
It's in
don't
his
think so, I
purview.
think that those were approved by Roger as your administrator.
Okay.
I mean, that's technically falls under day-to-day operations of the village, so I think that there were personnel discussions that were had. This is all, I wasn't a part of the village at that time, so it's just my assumption, but I do not think that the salaries that were given to, say, Dana and to Susan were approved by council, because I believe that those were considered just administrative decisions. I just wanted to offer clarification that that's not just
Yeah.
for my salary, but for the 3 of
Yeah.
us.
And council approved your salary specifically as
mine,
part of the
yes.
contract?
Yep.
That we
Yeah.
had a
Yeah, we did
discussion
vote
about?
on that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So really, what's questionable is the bumps that were given to the
That
staff
Roger gave, yeah.
after the budget was cast, and
Yes.
probably based on the Plant Moran compensation review.
That's my
is what I-
understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dana, can you scroll down there? Oh,
Okay, so I just covered the 6,000. There's also a $3,000 related to Broughton for supplies, repairs, maintenance.
go ahead, Dana, scroll down.
The 61,000 is related to the HVAC.
That's an estimate for what you have in front of you tonight, needing the new furnace here in place, and the replace the furnaces as well over at the PD. So that's an estimate.
So real quick though, with that, my understanding is that we're looking to allocate ARPA funds towards that.
Yes.
So this is a reflection of an amendment to the general fund, or, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that would not be reflective of ARPA, right? Because General fund, no, because
No.
it's restricted.
Correct, and right now it is not in there, but we will be moving
Because
those
we haven't
ARPA
approved
funds.
it yet.
Exactly.
Got
So
it.
we will see a transfer from the ARPA fund to the general fund, is
Yes,
that
it's
correct?
not, it's not an ARPA fund, I believe it's in our stormwater fund, but you
Yeah,
will see
okay.
this transfer, it's about $141,000 is what was remaining over there, so once that's approved, you would see that transfer over. And the idea would be this 61 right here, this is for the furnaces and the HVAC, and when we end up scrolling down, we'll see those generators that we purchased earlier for the PD, but we would use those ARPA funds to help cover that as well.
So,
For people who are wondering why we're finding $61,000 to pay for furnaces, we do have a capital fund, but it didn't include enough money to buy 2 furnaces or 2 or 3 generators. So there is a capital fund, it just wasn't enough to cover this.
Well,
There was enough funds
We
in
haven't
the
allocated it yet.
capital outlay right now, we had allocated over $100,000 over there.
Yeah,
But based on the restrictions that we were looking at and the time frame we were operating in with our ARPA funds, it was the best decision for the village to wrap up their obligation with these ARPA funds on a very fundable project that's appropriate, and to kind of reserve these other capital funds for maybe a different type of project in the future.
All right, so when we, for the first time, created those, that roughly $140,000 in allocation for what I thought we were gonna just have it as for future capital expenses or unexpected expenses. So we don't have anything scheduled above and beyond what we've already allocated part of that for, was to spend some of that on the generator, although we're covering the generator in the amended budget. And then we had said, well, okay, then we're probably, when you told us last meeting that we're probably gonna have a bunch of furnaces to repair, we said, okay, well, we do have that money sitting there. So if we never use that money, but we increase the budget now, when we get to the end of the year, will there then be another budget amendment to say, hey, you had $140,000 sitting here, you never spent it? Well, you did spend it, you increased the budget to cover it later. Does that then shifts back into the general fund to be kind of counterbalance part of what we're doing here?
Yes, that's what I would envision happening with those funds.
Because now that we know that and I'm glad that we set that money aside and that we had the availability to it, and as we're now finding, things like unexpected generators and unexpected furnaces come along, as much as we would love to use that for fun things like park benches and other things, that's why it's there. So at the end of the day, we should we do have the money already in the
Yes.
budget to cover all the furnaces and the generator, as long as we don't come up with new expenses between that. And we still might even have I don't even think that gets to 140,
Right.
the generator and the 2 furnaces. So just want to remind us that we could just pull from it there. Let's just do it as a budget amendment now, but at the end of the year, that money will then fall back into the general fund.
Absolutely, and then could be, in theory, could be budgeted again for the
Again next
following
year,
year, right?
absolutely.
And save those priorities.
Do you have a breakdown of the ARPA funding and what we spent it on and how much we have left to commit?
we've provided it to council in the past. We can update it
It
for,
has to be committed by the 31st, right? Mm-hmm. Have we committed all of it? Okay.
All but 140.
Which we're gonna use for the generator, for the furnaces, and then there were just a couple of other projects over here. So yes, we were going to get the rest of that. Now, the reason, my understanding is the reason it wasn't committed prior, it was in the stormwater, that was a huge project. And I think that those remaining ARPA funds were just sort of out of sight, out of mind. They're funding this giant infrastructure project. Because it isn't something that something that we discovered since my time that I've been here. that
Yeah,
has
so
existed.
for everyone who doesn't know, that's American Rescue Act money. And actually, I was asking a couple of council members on this. In the future, when we get funds from the federal government, I would like to have open public forums for the people to weigh in on how they would like those funds to be spent. I know like Farmington Hills had forums, they had listening sessions, like, hey, we got this downflow of money that comes from your taxes, you know, the federal government has packaged it up and we get this amount based on our, residential demographic, like, what are things that we should use this money towards? Because, you know, it's like, fortunately, we have something to use it towards, but had you not found that, that would have been money that we potentially wouldn't have committed, or would have
No,
just
we
been to
would've.
storm?
Yeah,
Okay.
there
Well,
have
we
been
had it-
discussions
We
about.
committed it to stormwater.
Okay.
as-
Yeah.
That's why we parked it there,
Yeah.
because that was the highest,
It
one of our highest
spent most
priorities.
of it in stormwater.
Yeah.
It's my understanding we had received about $500,000 or so, a little bit more than that, spent, put it in stormwater, used that to fund this project, and had spent most of it there. And then we're getting here to the end and found that there was a little bit left over, and we would have committed those funds at the end
Okay.
regardless. But to your point, you know, definitely I can see where strategies here could be, include more public engagement and just, you know, be better monitored, so we're
Yeah.
not at the last minute. Now, it ended up working out for the fact that, you know, we need to extend that right now, but.
So, again, just a point of clarification, we're approving this now, but are we early on it because we're gonna approve it, and then we're gonna do an approval to spend ARPA funds on the things, then it's like a lot of back and forth, whereas if we just held this off for a month, 2 months, would it just be easier accounting? It seems like a lot of unnecessary back and forth for something that's ultimately not gonna come out of the general fund.
I guess
I
the
would
breakdown of that
defer to
is,
Plant Moran on
what
that.
has to be done right now, other than the fact that you've identified it because you were doing your quarterly report?
So under ARPA, the village, because you received less than $10 million, you were allowed to take in the ARPA money as revenue loss. And so the council decided that you were going to recognize it as revenue when it was recorded or when it was expended. But since it had to be obligated by 12/31 under the reporting standards, taking it in as revenue loss was you're obligating it. And so essentially we recognized it as revenue as of 6/30/2024.
Okay.
And so now it's sitting in fund balance.
I'm now gonna say
waiting to be
Back to
expended.
the public.
Yes.
When I asked for the number of where our numbers sit for the general fund right now, that was inclusive of that amount.
Correct.
Yes.
So we're already reporting that our general fund reflects these amounts. So we are in fact going to be spending out of the general fund, not directly from ARPA, correct?
You will, correct. There will be an expense in your budget with not a revenue, because that revenue is already sitting in fund balance.
We've
'cause you
already accounted for
recognize
that
it in
revenue.
fiscal '24.
Okay. So again, for logistical purposes, we need to commit it and spend it.
Yep.
Wonderful. But we will see that decrease in our general fund.
Correct. And for budget purposes, there isn't a future amendment because the revenue's already been recognized.
Yeah.
This is the expense piece of it to match that up. It's just in different fiscal years.
Different years.
Can we use ARPA for public safety?
You can use ARPA funds for certain components of public safety.
So if there's any left, could we then put it towards the with the
Yes,
amendment?
so immediately becoming aware that there was this $141,000 of ARPA funds, I began engaging with staff, including the PD staff, code enforcement staff, building staff, everybody, to get ideas for projects that would be ARPA applicable, even though it sounds like it was already recognized as revenue loss. Either way, I think that's best practice there so I have basically an entire list of things
Okay.
that we should consider probably when we're making our capital planning next year too. So anything that would be left over in there, I have other projects that I'm ready to go on, that I could dedicate those to.
So, sorry, one last point of clarification, potentially, is if we reported it as revenue losses, does that mean that we've already committed it? Right, like, did we need to identify the project, or because of our size or the amount that we received, we really didn't need to, we could just say that it was a revenue loss?
Right, you could take it all in as payroll, and then that's what we've been telling people, and then it's free money. It's free to use as you wish
Yeah.
because of your threshold.
Got it.
others that exceeded would have had to been very intentional and not have that option for the excess.
I think I have a suggestion. Next time we talk about budget, can we do it under new business? Just because I feel like there's just so many questions. And I know that from the community too, there's a lot of interest in taxes and budget, what we spend. And I hate to keep residents here for hours, you know, who are representing a event permit, you know, through discussion, especially given that we haven't seen this. These are numbers, we are supposed to analyze, we have to think through it. Like, it just makes sense to put it under new business when it is in fact new business.
Dana, that's not an issue with, nope, yes.
Okay.
Moving forward, when we have a
This is
budget
legal.
presentation, we'll move it under new
Legal.
business.
It's just like, I want to think.
All right, so are we taking any action right now? Are we just gonna,
I think we should.
Table this to get our hands around it?
Table this
The whole thing?
till January, that's up to you guys. I feel like where we have the most question is in PD. I feel like the rest of it is pretty black and white, so if we wanted to make a resolution to approve everything with exception of the PD and bring PD back in January, or just table the whole thing and we can just
if it's
talk.
not needed, I would prefer to wait. This wasn't in our packet. This wasn't really
Yep.
even discussed at legal. I'd like to bring this back next month when we've all had a month to
Yep,
absorb it and review it. So if we could get those sent to us and, I mean, you guys don't necessarily have to come back next
No.
month because I don't think our
Either way,
questions
we're
are gonna
happy to do
change.
whatever makes the most sense, but we can give a more we can help get a more detailed level for the PD piece and provide that
Okay,
all right.
in dollars.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, our reports of our village officers and agents. Chief, sorry for that long delay.
It's quite okay. Youth Assistance is back here. They're telling me better hurry up because they need their money as well. So I'll be brief. First of all, congratulations to the new trustees and the new president. It's nice to see all of you. I just want to remind residents, since we got the TV up, that you've got to lock your vehicles at night. I know that the previous chief said this about every meeting. Take your valuables out of your vehicle. And please don't leave your keys in the car. We had 4 stolen vehicles last week, 2 in Franklin, 2 in Bingham Farms. 3 out of the 4 cars had their keys in the car. So it would help us out quite a bit. We did increase patrols this weekend. I authorized overtime, so we put more cars on the road. We didn't have any stolen vehicles this weekend, but there are individuals out there, they're checking the vehicles. So
Is it
just
like
be aware.
holidays? Does it usually uptake around the holidays?
A lot of times it happens around this time of year. We had a B&E of a business on Telegraph. It's very common this time of year. So we're trying to be vigilant as possible. I'm trying to put as many people on the road as I can and as we can afford. Second thing is, just so you're aware, there's a promotional testing for sergeant will occur this Thursday. We have 1 sergeant opening. We'll have oral interviews next Tuesday for both the sergeant's position and an open lieutenant's position. So both current sergeants are applying for the lieutenant's position, and I have 5 candidates for the sergeant's position. I engaged the International Association of Chiefs of Police, who custom designed our test. We've been very transparent, it's been very confidential, and the officers feel this is a very fair process. So it was a very wise investment. And then finally, you'll see there's kind of a new look to the monthly report. This is not the finished product, but what we're trying to do is be as transparent as possible with what's going on out there. We're really kind of listing all of our misdemeanor and felony incidents, kind of breaking those down for you. And I believe, Stephanie Longworth, who's one of our senior clerks, she's amazing, and she's been working with me on improving this report. So you'll see more graphs next month. But if you have any feedback on how we can improve this report, so it's easier for you to understand, just let me know in the next month or so. Are there any questions? Yes.
I am curious about something. Under the traffic citations, looking at the stats year-to-date and last year, You're issuing far fewer tickets this year than last year. What are your thoughts about that?
What are my
Are people
thoughts?
just behaving?
No, I don't think that's the case. If, you know, you drive around, you'll see somebody committing, you know, a violation every mile or so. But, you know, we did have some shortages of staff for a while. And I think that's affected it quite a bit. I have encouraged the officers, because of the issues we had with home invasions in Oakland County, to be into the residences, onto the streets, and don't worry about traffic as much. So I think that could account for some of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
I like the different categories you have, like community engagement, department training, citations. I think it's like really important to show like the different functions that you serve as a police department. So tell Stephanie, who I saw at Panera yesterday, that she did a good job.
She really does a great job, and I think since I've shown up and I've put a lot on her plate, and I've certainly put a lot on my sergeant's plates as we've moved forward, and they've done a great job, so.
Yeah, reporting is so important,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, this has been our format for a while. It seems to work. It's pretty, I don't have a problem following it. I don't know if anyone else has comments, but it works for us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Chief Tony here today, or anyone from the fire department?
Chief Tony is not available this
Okay.
evening, and it doesn't look like we have a different representative.
Okay, that's fine. We've received the report. We will file and accept it. Anybody have any comments on it? Anything you saw? All right, so, Lance. All right, sir.
Good. Good evening, trustees and president. Please accept my written report in the capacity as the village treasurer. The bills list report for this month totals $218,412.56. The amounts on the bills list are consistent with normal monthly spending, and the expenditures are generally consistent with our budget. The bills list for this month includes a large entry of $49,686. Apparently, it's for a new police car that we paid to Gorno Ford. The village has sufficient funds to meet its current and anticipated obligations. And the list of account balances in the package is as of December the 1st that we hold at First Merchant Bank. We do actively, and this is just adding to what occurred in the last presentation, we're going to be having several budget workshops. We talk about a glide path, basically how expenses are dominated by the police department and that they're going up. And that's not going to change anytime soon. We recognize, we understand it, but we're working on accurate forecasting and a buffer, as you mentioned, that we're not going to run out of money and that we're not going to have any surprises going forward. So these are things that we're going to deal with. I worked previously with Roger, and Meg's going to be taking a large role in that going forward as well. So I just wanted to mention that. Obviously, it's something of concern. One of the other things is we're always interested in adding as much money and contributing as much money as we can to the pension funds and if there are things that are budgeted that are under budget. Historically, we talked about potentially using some of those monies and shoring up some of the contribution limits or adding to those when things are going well, as they are going well in the markets at this particular point.
With regard to the pensions, didn't we receive something from the state regarding the pensions to try and bring us up those levels? And then
Yeah.
what are our obligations on that, and when do they end?
I wish Plant Moran was still
No,
here
that's okay,
for you,
sorry,
But
yeah,
I
that's
know
just-
that, Susan, do you have what we were funded before we received?
We have to meet the 60%, which we're just shy of the 60%.
Okay.
That program through the state was very helpful for
Yeah,
us. It
yeah.
definitely bumped us up. Now we're very close to that 60%. So much so that when we were in our SANP audit, they weren't concerned
Okay.
about our pension funding and felt like we had really done our due diligence by securing those funds and were comfortable with the balance that we were carrying.
And it took us from about 49.5%
Yeah.
up to almost 60%. So, but the thing is this, it's market driven. So
Yeah,
if the stock market's doing very well, and how the funds are invested, that's great. If things happen to go the other direction, it's a level of concern, so we want to keep shoring that up as much as we can.
Okay,
Okay.
that's helpful.
Lance, thank you for your comments. I just want to say that I know your position is volunteer, and so I was not trying to criticize the lack of long-term forecasting. I was thinking to myself that when we do budget this year, if I get appointed to the council, or the council committee, I want to bring in, you know, all of the different high dollar costs for the village and make sure that those costs will like stay the same, you know,
Right.
like for instance, you know, because sometimes it's like, oh, it's the same budget, you know, we'll just account for inflation, but like there's more than just inflation.
Right.
You know, and so I want to work, like, does MEG have new priorities that need to be funded, you know, or that we're underfunded, you know, like
Sure.
just making sure that we match our 5-year priority plan with our 5-year financial plan.
Right,
So thank you.
sure.
Thanks, Lance. So, the way we have our agenda set up is we moved in the council administration and considering new appointment of council at this stage. If you guys want to continue on, keep it, everything like that, let's deal with that now. We could,
Do we need to approve Bill's list?
we had it next, that was sort of my point. Do we want to, since we've got Lance here and you don't have to make him stay, do you want to do bills, just move bills and quickly just move bills in front of council administration? Let's cover that while Lance is here, so we can at least let him go home.
Second grade.
So, anybody have any questions or comments?
What is the bond refund on the bottom of page 55?
So when a
4,500.
permit, so they have to get bond for some of the items that they do in the building, so when they're done with that, whatever the project is, then they do get that bond refund. So that's what we're on.
They post a bond to make sure they complete everything, and then once they
Oh,
complete
I
it,
see,
To the building
okay.
department.
It's like
Yep.
it's a
like a
refund.
checks and balances,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a refund.
Okay, and then, there was 2, bills for legal. Do we have 2 firms that we work with besides Peters?
Well, we have an attorney that handles our criminal, Alan Glass handles
Oh,
our
okay,
criminal
so we
stuff.
do, okay.
And Brer Howlett is our municipal attorney.
Okay, I
So
don't
if you ever see
realize.
that stuff for Alan Glass, he's the one
Yeah.
who goes and like does traffic tickets and
Okay,
misdemeanors.
so
and
he acts as the village prosecutor,
Prosecuting attorney,
essentially?
essentially,
Okay,
yes,
I
yes.
didn't even know that, okay. And then these accounting services, do we retain Plant Moran? Do we pay a, retainer to them in addition to hourly, services?
So we just do the hourly services. I know we had a contract with them one time.
Okay. Okay, so this, 4,700, is that typical in a month? Or is this because they did their quarterly review that,
Quarterly, and we're doing.
The audit
time.
as well.
Okay.
The audit will eat up a lot.
okay.
Usually a couple thousand, but not
I
that.
was gonna say, that's a lot of money for 1 month.
Yeah, no, and there were other analysis that they ran too, so I think it was a particularly heavy month, especially with the audit.
Okay. And then, where's the Slade House?
Slade House.
For the Save a Tree,
Oh. Okay, we excavated trees, okay. I was like, is that
They
it?
planted in Raleigh.
Oh.
streetscape, and they were dying, and so they replanted. They planted.
Okay, I was just like, is that a new name for a building? Okay, and then, the plumbing and mechanical inspections, does that happen every month?
Yes.
Okay,
Part of the building, so he comes and does inspections for whenever somebody pulls a permit.
Yeah, Bill doesn't do electrical or plumbing inspections.
so-
We
okay,
have
so
separate
there's-
individuals that do
okay.
those. Bill
The
just
fees
does
are
the
paid
building.
for by the contractor, whomever, homeowner.
Right, whoever has requested the permit does pay for the inspection, but
Okay.
we have to pay those inspectors.
okay, and then for McKenna, so we had a, opinion by McKenna regarding the lot combo. Who authorizes those studies, is that planning commission can direct McKenna to expend resources on an issue that they see fit? Or does that come to you as administrator?
Most of what McKenna's gonna be working on would come from as an administrator. And like what you see in the lot split there is, if we had a planner on staff, those things would need to be reviewed. So there will be certain things such as like a land split application, a demolition application, something that Chris may review because, he does serve as our planner here.
Okay.
Now, Planning Commission can definitely have recommendations for Chris, but I would be in attendance to all of those meetings and privy to all of those conversations, so I would still say that the expending of Chris's time and funds would come from me.
Okay, because I don't know if this is a possibility, but like, I would want to put any analysis or any questions that planning has on the architect of the applicant. You know what I mean? So like, I know just for zoning, right, like, the residents come and they want an approval and they want a renovation, and we pepper the architect of the applicant with questions, and I know that the resident pays for their time, but it's their decision to come before planning, and so I just want to make sure that if we're expending taxpayer money on one-off, issues, like, I want to make sure like it goes through you, and not just, planning, like, I want to require the resident to come with a justification and make sure that, their architect and their engineer and their money is used to get their issue well discussed and well informed by whatever body they're in front of.
Definitely hear what you're saying as far as like no one else should be expending planning's funds or doing that contract except for me. But we do reach this line because he does serve as our planner. You don't pay me to be your administrator during the day. You don't pay our planner to review the application. I mean, you do pay for an application review. That's not the right word to use. You wouldn't pay the planner. That wouldn't be an expense that we would put back on a resident. That is our job as the government to provide those services. So it's not as clean cut as what we would see in like a building permit where you pay directly for that inspection.
Okay.
Where there isn't a good way to pass that back because that's a service we provide as a government.
Okay.
And so yes, maybe you, resident A, get this benefit today and resident B gets it tomorrow, but that's us as a government providing planning services. But I absolutely hear what you say is like in the sense that we do pay Chris for every amount of time that he spends on our project, that's under my direction for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with planning meetings as
That comes out of
ZBA
the planning
meetings.
budget.
Yep.
That comes out of the planning
Okay.
commission,
Yep.
gets allocated a budget. Majority of their expenses are for McKenna.
Yep.
And for public notices and things like that. And when Chris is working on planning-related work, then that comes out of the budget that we've given planning. If planning has excess money, at the end of the year, it goes in the general fund. If they spent more than they were allocated, we usually do a budget amendment to cover it.
Okay.
They try and stay within their budget, and for the most part, usually do.
I think we actually manage that pretty well
Yeah.
with McKenna. And Chris is he's worked with the village
Yeah.
for so long, very conservative with his time. It's just not really an apples to apples. It's not a fee that I could tack on to a resident per se.
No.
'cause it's a
I didn't
function
know
of
the process. I just wanted to make sure that, he was doing like review
Yes.
and not so much, initial investigation.
Agreed.
So now that you clarified that,
Yep.
I understand why we obviously need an objective government, third party to write a recommendation.
Yep.
I have a question
Yeah.
before we close out on this. Going back to Save a Tree and the root excavation, I got a call today wondering if the work had been done. It sounds like it did. And I see Kathy here in the audience. So are they warranting their work? I understand there was a risk to the life of the two trees in question. How will we know that the remedy that they recommended is effective, and on whom is that the success of that remedy, them or us. And this part two of that question is, the same person planted all of the trees in the streetscape. Are we looking at root excavation for all of the trees or just those?
Just those. So we have had in-depth conversations about the trees that were planted in order to assess, is this going to be an ongoing problem that we're going to notice with the other trees that were planted in the area, and to really look at that process. We do believe that the other trees were planted appropriately, and are being monitored, and thus far, we haven't had notable problems with the other trees. Now, with these two and the problems that they were experiencing, Save a Tree does come in and take care of those. Do you know if Save a Tree has a warranty on that? I think that's a really good question. Also, the question would be, is that a Save a Tree warranty, or is it their obligation to cover that warranty, or would it fall back on maybe, I don't know,
The original
Jerry who planted the
installer.
original trees?
And I'll circle back with you, and it's
Yeah.
not necessary for us to talk about this there, but it's kind of a big deal because that was a huge investment.
Absolutely,
But let me
yep.
come back, because I think we need to also look at the purchase date of those trees and whether, and what warranty, if anything's left on those trees, because there was one at one point. So,
Or leverage the fact we have an ongoing contract, right? Like,
they weren't planted by Save a Tree, the trees were purchased from another supplier.
Yeah.
And the trees themselves were warranted for a couple of years. That's why the village took on responsibility to water them, so that we would protect that warranty and not rely on property owners to do that.
Yeah.
We were protecting our interests.
yeah,
But I don't know if I remember when that warranty expired, or if it did. So given we've had trouble with the trees in front of the one property, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
we're
I get
on
it.
top of it for
Right.
the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve the bills list.
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. All right. So, as we've already discussed, we have an opening on council, and the process that the charter provides for is the existing council needs to consider and appoint a new person on council. This trustee will fill my seat that I vacated, which still has 2 years remaining on it, 2 years, just short of 2 years. So it's a significant commitment by the individual. We received 4 written applications from applicants. I see that, I know 3 of them, so I see those 3 here. I don't know if, there's our 4th applicant in the back. Okay, so all 4 are here. I think the appropriate thing to do would first allow each of them an opportunity to speak, and if anybody has questions and answers for them, we could ask them specific questions then. So let's, maybe to do this simply, where are we in here? Let's just start with the first individual on our list. What is in here? Gosh. Why don't we maybe do this?
Can I ask you a question? Are all
All
of
of
them
our-
eligible to be appointed?
So that was actually one of the questions that we had.
I do believe that one of the applicants owns property but isn't currently residing in the village, and the charter does say with 2 years.
So is it 2 years, you have to be a resident for 2 years to run, or is it 2 years to even serve? Let's vet that out, so. It talks about this.
okay, it's section 3.
3?
Chapter
Yeah.
3.
All right, yeah. So the president or trustee should be elected. No person shall be eligible to the office of president or trustee who shall not be at the time of his or her election age of 25 and been a resident of the village for at least 2 years.
Yes.
Right, so, I guess technically, as much as we would love to hear from Ms. Johnson, and in my discussions from her would be a wonderful person to join the village in a volunteer capacity, maybe we'll.
So my recommendation is, even if she's not
Yeah, let's
eligible,
let
the
her
fact
speak.
that she's
for
here.
sure. No, no,
okay,
absolutely, I
okay,
just wanted,
okay.
I think
Oh,
the
yeah,
point is we
yeah,
need
yeah,
to
yeah,
advise her
yes.
that we technically can't consider her.
And I
Yep.
would just ask next time we post, let's put eligibility requirements, so that way we don't.
There really isn't other than a trustee spot. I mean, I hope we don't have trustees opening on a regular basis. All our other positions, you don't have the requirements.
You don't have to be a resident of Franklin?
You have to be a resident, but you don't have to have lived here 2 years in order to sit on planning or
But
HDC.
just
or-
because someone owns property in Franklin, if they're not a resident, could they serve on CBA?
Yes.
Okay, so the residency is specific to, because I met a lot of
To
people
two-year
that own
residency.
property.
If they
You don't
were-
need to own property.
You don't have to own. You have to
Yeah.
either
Yeah.
own or be a resident. You can lease. So the Supreme Court has already overruled the
Yeah.
ownership piece. That's not it. It's it says, been a resident of the territory for at least 2 years immediately preceding.
So
So
just
that's
thinking
the
people
issue.
that I've met who own a house here but are residents of Florida, would they be eligible for ZBA or other
If they
position?
own
Yes.
property here, they would be.
Okay, or rent it
Yeah.
even,
Yep.
what you're saying.
Yep.
Okay.
But I think Angelina's point is well taken, and where there are constraints or restrictions, they should be published as part of the opportunity on the website. Main Street, you don't have to be a resident of Franklin, HDC, you do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we should do that.
That's an excellent point. Let's do that so we don't have a situation. Here we go finally. All right, so let's go just based upon how and sort of
I am
alphabetically.
interested in alphabetically.
Yeah, so that's perfect. So the first candidate who submitted an application is Bashir Chama. Bashir, please feel free to address us.
Good evening again. My name is Bashir Shama, and I've been living here in this beautiful town of ours for about 7 years. I have a wife and 3 children. I ran for the president seat, but Mr. Goldberg was a very tough opponent to beat, and I congratulate him for winning. But I still would like to serve and help with the capacity, with the experience, with the background that I have. One of the benefits that I was able to reach is knocking on every door. When I went campaigning, I knocked on almost every door in this town, and I talked to a lot of residents. So I have an idea on majority of the residents, what affects their day-to-day, like the cell phone service, for example, like the power outages and what we can and can't do about it. Better contracts, what happened with some residents misunderstood what happened with the garbage. And other open topics as well, like walkability. So I think a lot of us here, we're in common on a lot of these issues that we'd like to see resolved. A little bit about my background. I have an MBA. I'm as well an engineer by trade. I'm a certified project manager as well. I'm currently in the automotive industry. I manage a business unit. We assemble actuators, tier 1. We're tier 1 for the big OEMs. And my business unit is about $8 million a year in sales. So this is the capacity that I manage. I'm a crisis manager as well. So I manage recalls, any issues. Sometimes I have to talk to government officials, explain what's going on. I build plans as well. I manage the budgets for building plants, new projects, existing projects. So all that experience, all that background that I have, I think it'll be a beautiful addition to this beautiful council. And I know a lot of you, and I would love to work with you guys if you consider to appoint me. And like I said, there's a lot of opportunities, and just based on the campaign that I've done, going knocking door to door, I'll be a great additional voice here that's gonna represent a lot of the villagers that all of us met. Any questions that you guys like me to do?
What do you think is the biggest strength of the village and weakness?
The biggest strength is the community, for sure. For sure, biggest community. I don't know if I can think of a weakness, but we're a small village, right? So sometimes budgeting can be a challenge, like what we were witnessing today. So sometimes that's required a little bit of creative accounting, which I have a lot of experience with. So at work, I face a lot of challenges, and a lot of these challenges cost money. But I usually work on turn these challenges into opportunities. So how can we generate these funds? Maybe some creative accounting, maybe some opportunities to create this funding. Looking forward, I can go on and give a lot of examples, but this is something that's been, unfortunately for our lower population to what we have.
Thank you.
Of course.
Walking through and knocking on the doors, if you had to kind of narrow the top 3 priorities for the community, actually just start, and if you could rank them, that'd be helpful. Just soliciting the feedback, because again, your insight is valuable.
Yeah. So number 1 was the cell phone service issue. A lot of villagers were complaining about that. They don't have cell phone service, right? I know there's been many attempts to resolve this issue. So I think that was one of the top priorities that a lot of villagers told me, what about the cell phone service? How can we resolve it? So I have some feedback from the villagers on what they like to see done that I'd like to share with you. The number 2 topic was the power outage, right? I know we don't control that, and that's DTE, but the villagers are like, what can we do as village to resolve this issue? Some people have already this year alone about 300 hours on their backup generators. And just to give you an idea, the villagers were actually educating me on this, that every 100 hours you have to go ahead and maintain it, and that costs money. So what could we do to help them out there? And obviously a lot of the villagers as well were not happy about having to buy the garbage cans, right? Because some of them didn't read the letter properly. I didn't buy them, for example. I didn't cost, but a lot of people went and spent up to like $400 to go and get them. So that's one thing. It's like, okay, what can we do for communication? Number 4 would be budget. If we can maybe have one overview for the budget, like happening in other communities, that's something the villager would like to see. Okay, so what our budget a year? So, that's something like that. Just an overview, not in detail. So this is 1 to 4 if I would tell you, if I knock on doors.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, excellent. Thank you, Bashir.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
All right, next, Dan Ferris.
Good evening. My interest in serving on council, first of all, just stems from my love of our village here and our sense of community. I have 2 little girls, and it would be so rewarding for me to be a part of shaping the future of the village. I have a long history of civic service work, and I'd like to try to stay involved in something really going back to my high school years. I have been serving on the Planning Commission for over a year now. I'd like to think I've made a positive impact there, and I believe I could also make a positive impact if I were given the opportunity to serve on council. I like to think of myself as a responsible, thoughtful, and analytical person. I am an attorney, so of course I have experience in analyzing, interpreting regulations, but I've also had some relatively unique experiences in drafting regulations as well. I was first appointed and then elected to serve on the Representative Assembly of the State Bar of Michigan, which is the equivalent of the House of Representatives of the State Bar. And so I was a representative on a policy-making body similar to this. And I served as chair of the drafting committee there. And so I was very intimately involved in the drafting of regulations in that role. And so I think that experience would really be an asset serving on council. I am with the Kerr Russell firm in Detroit, which by Franklin standards is something of a startup in that we're only celebrating our 150th anniversary this year. I was selected to serve on my firm's strategic planning committee, and I'd like to think that that reflects my colleagues' opinion that my judgment is typically sound most of the time, hopefully. I've held several other leadership positions. I won't mention them all here, but just to note one more, I am currently in a program called Leadership Detroit, that's put on by the Detroit Regional Chamber, and that's proven to just be an excellent program that I also think would be something that would allow me to help serve here on the council if given the opportunity. So I thank you so much for your consideration and certainly would entertain any questions.
I have the same question for you. What do you think is Franklin's biggest strength and biggest weakness?
Well, it's interesting. For me, the strength and the weakness are the same thing in that I think the sense of community we have here is the greatest strength. I just love going to the events here on the green. I joke with friends who aren't familiar with Franklin that I feel like I'm living at a Hallmark movie. And just the small town feel that we have here and that sense of connectedness is to me, as a dad of two little girls especially, just such a beautiful thing. But on the flip side, the lack of connectivity is an issue here in terms of accessibility. Some of our communities are really landlocked and completely isolated from the others. I happen to live in Cromwell, and so we're kind of stuck off a Telegraph. And I just imagine my girls aren't quite old enough to be riding bikes. I have one who's just got her first bike for her birthday on training wheels, but they can't even ride their bikes hypothetically to a friend's house who lives really just a quarter of a mile away, but there's no safe way to get there. So I love the sense of community and the connectedness, but I'd really like to work on making us even more connected as one priority.
Thank you.
This is a 2-year term. Do you see yourself running for council after that 2-year term?
Well, one thing to know about me is that I'm a very committed person. I mentioned my law firm. I've actually been with the same firm my entire career, right out of law school, since 18 years now. It's for me this year. So when I take something on, I do tend to stick with it, and that would be my intention, would be to serve the village on council long term.
Anybody else? Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Ms. Keneal Johnson. Hi there. First of all, welcome. We know that you are a new resident, so we're glad to have you here in the village.
Thank you. Glad to be here, and good evening to members of the council and fellow residents. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself to you all tonight. I will use this as an opportunity to just strictly do that and not convince you all of why I should be a member of the council, because we clarified that I'm not eligible. So thank you for that clarification. Actually,
I want you to know that.
No, I appreciate.
I was in your position, and I would apply if I were you. I would recommend you apply to like all the boards, because
100%.
the fact that you came and showed up and are new and want to get involved, and I've read your resume and you work for the county. I mean, you're spectacularly qualified,
Well,
so we do not want to lose you. So please don't be discouraged.
you will not lose me. And interestingly enough, I'm learning that I'm going to practice my patience here, because my husband and I, we actually closed on our home November 17th, and we were so excited to move in right away. And a week prior to the closing, we found out that the sellers needed some more time to stay in the house. And when I tell you, the bags were packed and we were ready, and so it delayed our move. We currently live in Bloomfield, and so we will not be moving until the first week in January. So we will be here physically after the new year, and we're so excited. But once again, a reminder of just the importance of being patient. And I understand that a position like this requires me to get familiar with the community, the residents, my neighbors, and to listen to everyone, understand the concerns, and more importantly, build trust. I understand, I've worked in so many different capacities to where I realize you just can't step into a room and not, gain trust from everyone. So I do realize that, the importance of patience. Just a little bit about myself. I currently serve as the Chief of Staff for the Wayne County Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services, where I do spend my time focusing on public health, leadership, and organizing efforts to better serve our communities. Through my work, I have gained a deep understanding of how to collaborate with diverse stakeholders, address complex challenges, and lead initiatives that make a meaningful impact. Leadership and organization are passions of mine, and I've consistently worked to bring people together to achieve common goals. And I've also seen firsthand how engaged and committed residents can help their communities thrive, which has further strengthened my belief in the importance of local government. So as I listen to you all ask questions about strengths and weaknesses, community is a strength and it is a weakness. And I'm going to say that when communities are not involved, that's where the weakness occurs. We really need to make sure that communities are involved because there's strength when people come together. And so, again, thank you all for allowing me to introduce myself to you tonight. And I look forward to serving in the future in any capacity.
Please stay involved.
So real quick question,
Yes.
why did you choose Franklin?
Yeah.
We've actually been looking for like 3 years. We got married during COVID, and we've been looking. And miraculously, this house appeared, and it's on Woodside, and it was when we saw it, it was just like, this is it. This is our forever home. It has everything that we were looking for, and we walked around the neighborhood and just feeling that charm. Franklin has such unique character, and it's just like a dream. My husband's been telling everybody, I got my dream wife, now I have the dream home. Like, okay. But it is a dream for us. Yep,
we're
the
lucky to
character.
have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you answered my question already, so
Yep.
thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Leave your number with my.
Okay, and our last applicant is Al Ludwig. Al?
Good evening, everybody. Been entertaining so far. Most of you know me. Abby, we haven't met, but nice to meet you. And congratulations on everybody who got elected recently. I've lived in Franklin for 10 years. My wife and I bought an old piece of junk and knocked it down and built a nice new house. One of the smaller lots in Franklin, we're over by 14 and Inkster. So the lots are a little bit smaller, but we love it. We just love living here. This is actually my third attempt to get onto this council in the last few years. When the seat opened up that David ended up coming on to, I had applied for that as well. And Roger called me and said, I'd respectfully ask you to withdraw your application because we think David has been on the planning commission for so long, he should be the one that should be taking this spot. And however, we think that you might be a good fit for the planning commission. So I said, okay, and I withdrew. And then I filed to run for the spot, and then when I saw that 8 names came out to run for the seats, I don't have the time to go knock on every door. And I knew that I wasn't going to beat 7 other people, especially I didn't want to run against Mike. So, because I like and I respect Mike a lot, and I think his presence on this council is invaluable. So it meant really targeting one person, and I just didn't think that I would have the ability to be elected with the amount of time that I would have to put into it. I know, David, that you and I talked about what happens after 2 years, and I can't say what's going to be in 2 years for sure. I just don't know. But my thought is that I would hand the wand over to somebody else that gets elected for this position rather than somebody that automatically becomes an incumbent, which gives them an unfair advantage. A little bit about me, I've been in real estate for 50 years now. In August, I hit my 50-year anniversary, shall we say. I've been with the same partners since 1984, so that's 40 years with them. We've done so much development. We do property development and property management. We built thousands of homes, even though I was not the home builder. I was building the subdivisions. That required me to go to planning commissions, city council meetings, zoning boards, constantly throughout the last 50 years in virtually every community around, with the exception of Franklin. So I know how these boards run, I know how they work. I've met all the mayors and all the city managers, and I also did a project in Farmington Hills. I lived in Farmington Hills for about 21 years, built my first house there. And Farmington Hills wanted to build a golf course and a driving range, and they had an old dump that they wanted cleaned up. And a place where the garbage trucks used to go and dump the garbage for years and years. It was an old peat bog that they had mined the peat out, and so they just dumped the garbage in to fill up the hole. After they never closed it, the guy who owned it, who happened to be a judge, never finished, never put a cap on it, so there was just junk laying there and toxins going into the ground. It never had a base put on for it, so they wanted to take care of their liability, shall they say. They put out an RFP to which 13 different companies responded. I was one of the 13. They whittled it to 9, and then they whittled it to 3. And they brought in the 3 for interviews. I was one of the 3. I ended up being awarded the project. Working with its city, it was private-public, because we took care of the landfill. We built them a golf course and the driving range. We built them a clubhouse, which included a restaurant and cart storage. We built them a Parks and Rec facility on some excess land in the back, so that's where they take care of all their lawnmowers and stuff. In return, we got the property to build 80 condos. Originally, we were going to do 350 apartments, but the community didn't want 350 apartments, but they were receptive to 80 condominiums, single-family homes. So that project got me to work with the community for about 4 to 5 years with everybody within the community. I was also on the Farmington Hills Community Foundation. I was on their first Brownfield committee when they were first opening up and setting up a Brownfield department. And I was on the Farmington Hills Grand River Corridor Improvement Committee. So did a lot in Farmington Hills. I don't live there anymore. I moved to Franklin. I wanted to stay involved, and that's when I took over on David's spot on the Planning Commission. Frankly, I'm a little bored with the Planning Commission because mostly what we do is ordinance analysis. And I thought, Pam, you put it perfectly. We don't have time to plan because we're spending all of our time on ordinance reviews. So I'm likely not going to stay on the Planning Commission if I don't get this position. I don't know for how much longer, but it's not what I was looking for as much as other planning commissions that I've been involved with. Usually on the other side of the table, because I'm always on this side of the table. But I see, as a developer, they usually put you last on the agendas, so you get to see what everybody ahead of you, what their plans are. So I'd love your support. I think I'd be good. And I'm already up to speed on a lot of things because of the Planning Commission. And I think the other candidates are excellent too, so I don't think whoever you choose is going to be a bad decision. But I'd like to do it if you guys want me.
Thank you.
Sam.
Can I ask the same question?
Absolutely.
What do you think is Franklin's, well, first of all, what you told me about Roger calling you to withdraw your application, no offense to David, but it makes my
never knew
skin
that.
crawl.
I never knew that
Because
happened either.
everyone
Makes no sense.
who is in this village has the eligibility, except for the 2-year that we learned about on council, and you would have had been here 2 years, right? When it was, when the vacancy opened, to apply. And the council deserved to have heard and seen and reviewed your application.
Well, I believe they had, but they hadn't had a meeting yet. And I believe the council members had all discussed it amongst themselves,
Yeah.
like you guys have done on this, which is not making a decision in advance, but I think they were unanimous in saying with each other, we got to give this to David. He's earned it. He's earned his stripes, and he deserves this spot.
To me, like, that's a excessive, like, obviously, I would hope that an administrator, and I know, Mike, you would never do this, would not deter a resident from even applying. Because even if, like, say, I had called Keneal, and said, like, don't come. Like, it's just, I want to see everyone who's been involved. I want to know their strengths. I want to know their expertise. I want to review their applications. And we're a stronger community for the diversity of thought and the diversity of, perspectives that every resident brings. And so I would encourage every resident who's watching this to apply for the openings on zoning and apply for the openings on planning, even if you don't know anyone in council. Like, I had a physician text me, should I apply for zoning because I can't interpret regulations? I'm a doctor. I'm like, yes, apply. You want to be involved. You are eligible by being a resident and you have a passion to serve. That is basically your criteria. And so I know that we have policies for appointments and posted for 30 days. This one couldn't be because the charter overruled the policy with it having to be filled in 30 days from David's resignation. But I speak for myself. I would like everyone who is interested to apply and then have the attorney determine eligibility, or the clerk or the administrator, and not deter someone from even presenting their application, regardless of whether you think you're going to get voted or not, because it shows the council that there are people, that want to be involved, and there's lots of times where we're in need of volunteers. And like, I'm going to be the first one to call you and say, hey, I know you wanted to volunteer, and this is something that interests you. So I would just, I appreciate your resilience and coming back here, and that you didn't want to run against Mike and everyone.
Like a bad penny, right?
Yeah, and I got calls too from people telling me not to run. Why are you running against your best friend? It's like, if you want to do something, you have to pursue it relentlessly, and I was like, oh, there's only 2 open spots. Well, there's 3 open seats. Like, no one owns a seat. This seat belongs to the village. And so I commend you for being so perseverant in serving. And so I thank you.
Roger did not hurt my feelings, because once I understood that it was David had applied for
Yeah.
the spot, I knew that he had paid his dues, and more so than I had. And I felt that he was more deserving. So that's why I agreed to withdraw at that time.
Al, I'm having a hard time understanding now why you chose not to run. I mean, I understand the desire not to run against someone you knew, but if this was something you wanted to be a part of, then why not follow through? If you're talking about being perseverant, to me, that's a miss.
Yeah, we supported David when David first ran. And my wife was out helping Angelina stuff mailboxes. And I know the diligence that she was going to put in. I knew she was going to go knock on every door.
But there are 3 seats.
There was 3 seats, but I wanted Mike to have one. I didn't want to diminish, I didn't want to take away from him.
But that's two.
So that's two. I knew Angelina was going to get one. At least I assumed in my mind that she was going to put in the effort necessary to get it. And that left one. And there was like 6 people. And I just, I have a full-time job still. I don't know forever, but I don't think I'm ever going to retire, but I'm working. And I don't have the time to go out and knock on every door. I have 2 dogs I gotta walk, and I like to play golf, so I have a life too.
Sure.
And
But
I just,
so we're your voting body, correct?
correct.
I didn't hear from you. Why is that?
I didn't know you, and I thought about asking how to reach you, and I just didn't. I actually apologize for not doing that. I probably I should have. I did talk with David, I talked with Angelina, I talked with Pam. Mike called me from Arizona.
Sure. I'm not saying I take that personally. I'm just saying, when we talk about the energy to canvas, I can understand that within the confines of an election. But there are 5 of us here. And to me, if this was something you had, the real interest in doing, I would have been calling or finding some way to reach out to the people who were voting for you to do that. So.
Well, you're right.
I mean,
You're
I'm just
right.
saying it concerns me when we talk about the level of energy. Like, I think we all have full-time jobs as well. And I have children. I have young children who are in school, one of whom is home from school today. And I,
Sounds
you know,
like
have to
that's
place-
going around the whole,
And so, and I just say this because we're talking about being involved and putting your hat in the ring, but we are a handful of voters, and it is concerning that I didn't hear from you after putting in this application. And, the whole goal here is that we work together in order to make any progress for the village.
for sure.
So, I mean, that's just my take on this. That surprises me.
Anybody else? All right, thanks,
So
Al.
did you answer the strength and the weakness question? I want to make sure I'm,
Oh, no, I don't think we got there. The strength, everybody loves Franklin. It's, when people ask where you live, when you say Franklin, you're saying it with a level of pride, because it is such an adorable community. It's like a Hallmark Christmas card. Everybody knows each other, and for the most part, everybody gets along, and, we can't walk the dogs without being stopped by neighbor after neighbor when it's nice outside. And so I just love the community, and the way you feel about it. I'd love to see downtown come back a little bit more and get more people in here. I think it'll be nice to get the restaurant open. I know Lisa's doing a great job. I work out with Lisa once a week. She's doing I know she's gonna do a great job on the coffee shop and the little, whatever she does in that back building. So that'll be nice, but I'd like to see more businesses come back here. I used to do yoga here, right downtown, but that's not available anymore. So I'd like to see more energy downtown. I think Main Street people work hard. I think they're doing a good job. And I'd like to, from this side of the table, I'd like to help them.
From your work with the other municipalities, what is something that we can improve as a municipality of just like the non-interesting stuff, but important from a logistical standpoint?
It's a tough question.
Fair.
From a planning commission standpoint, I can address that more because I've been to obviously a lot more of those meetings. I don't think we have the organization that we should. I think people just start talking when some thought comes to their head, they just start talking. And you go to communities like Novi or West Bloomfield, and you don't speak unless you ask to speak. And the chair says, okay, what do you have to say? And then you close your mouth until you raise your hand again. I don't think we have that. I don't think we need to be formal. We're not Washington, D.C. here. But I think that more organizational skills within or led by our groups would help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
All right. Before we proceed, first of all, I want to address one thing. This news about Roger is news to me, and as equally disturbing as it is to you, it is to me. And I assume, as our new village administrator, I don't think I even have to say it, knowing you that that isn't even in the equation. Anyone who is a resident of Franklin should get involved. We strive for as many volunteers as possible. So I hope that anyone that wants to get involved would get involved and not have any reservation in doing so. The ability to serve as a volunteer in Franklin has nothing to do with our cognitive abilities. Every single resident of Franklin has the mental capabilities of doing what we do. This is not rocket science up here. Where where the road hits the pavement, or whatever the saying is, where your true abilities stand out are more in your commitment to the board that you're on, your dedication to your oath, your attendance at your meeting, and being an active and regular participant. And as long as you're doing those things and capable of those things, then you're capable of serving in the village of Franklin. And with the exception of the position that we're dealing with now at council, where we are sort of sitting in the shoes of the electorates and having to make a decision as if they were making it, all of our other bodies, that is not the case. So I encourage everybody to get involved, as we've discussed through our guideline process in the past. It's sort of the more you've tried, the better chance you have. We have one opening and 5 people apply. We can only choose one of them, but that means the other 4 have tried. And then when there's another opening, we hope that at least those 4 have applied along with others. And it's those 4s that have been sort of missed the opportunity in the past that you get a future opportunity. So it's really more a matter of timing and commitment, and nothing to do with whether or not any of us are capable of being volunteers. Every single one of us are capable of that. So I just wanted to get that out there. So we've heard from our applicants. We've had a chance to do questions and answers. The next appropriate thing would be if anyone wants to make a motion. As you know, we have to appoint a new trustee by December the 20th, which would be 30, well, maybe the 19th, whatever 30 days is from the day I resigned. If we're not capable of getting it done today, we would have to come back for a special meeting between now and then to do so. So I guess with really nothing else to do next other than, is there anyone that wants to make a motion to consider one of our applicants? We would need a motion and a second for someone, and then would need 4 of the 5 of us to consent to that nomination.
I'll make a motion to nominate Dan Ferris.
Second.
Second, motion and a second. Any more discussion?
And just on clarification of the 4 within the charter, Peter, could you provide us some guidance as to, is that standard for all business, or is that for this vote in particular?
I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Typically, I would imagine that it would be a majority of council, not 4 votes.
For the majority of business, it is just a majority of votes.
Say that again?
For the majority of business, it is the majority of votes. Now, just bear with me, let me review this.
I'm not sure about that. I thought all action of the council requires 4 affirmative votes, even if,
I think we're saying the same thing.
So for us to
well, if we only have 4 people here, which is a quorum,
Right.
3 of those people would not constitute an affirmative vote. Even though it's a majority of those present, I thought the charter says whenever you take action, it requires 4 votes.
4 members of council shall constitute a quorum.
But the question that you're raising is, what number do we need to approve
Correct.
to go forward with the candidate?
And is that unique to
Is
this
it-
vote, or is that for all business?
So chapter 3, section 7 says the affirmative vote of a majority of the trustees, which shall be 4 votes, shall be required for the passage of any ordinance or resolution, unless in any given case a different number is required by this charter or state law. So you need, quorum is 4 members, and you need 4 votes to pass any
Correct.
ordinance or resolution. This council acts by ordinance or resolution, so you need 4 votes always.
And so this is something that I want to point out, is that I'm not entirely sure we've operated that way.
What do you mean?
I don't believe that we have only passed things based off of a total of 4 votes.
I believe if it was majority, most of the time we have 7 members here. And my understanding is when we've had a majority approve 4, it's always passed. Now, there could be,
I've never been aware of a vote that we had where only 3 people affirmed the vote and it passed.
So
Even though 4 or 5 people would have been present, even whenever we've had meetings of 4 and 5 people, we've always made it clear that it takes 4
Okay.
people
Yeah.
to
So
affirm
that's just one
something.
thing that I want to point out too, because I think for, that the way that our charter is structured, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but it basically says we can only take action through resolution or ordinance, but we need 4 votes in order to do it. Not a majority.
correct, but that's the same thing though, right?
It's not. It's a presumed, a majority only exists if you have all 7 here. Otherwise,
Correct.
you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's a pretty large assumption for how I traditionally would think of a majority acting of business. And it makes sense, like logistically, if you think about it, you don't want to wait for a couple people to miss and then push through an agenda. So I get why it was structured that way, but I do think that it's just a good point of clarification as we just came off of a new election. We have new people to council, that for us to conduct any business whatsoever in an official capacity, it has to be 4 votes, not necessarily. I wouldn't even worry about the majority of council. It's just 4 votes.
Yeah, or said differently. If there are 4 people here, you have a quorum, but then things have to pass unanimously with those 4.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And with 5 of us here, 4 have to vote
Correct.
Have to
affirmatively.
vote.
Yep.
That has always been my understanding. In fact, I remember trying to change it to a simple majority, and it failed in a vote of the citizens.
Oh, yeah,
They
right.
said you have to have 4, which is the original charter language.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of, I can't imagine why we would only go with 3, but I think we've talked about it, so.
Yeah, so in order for this motion to pass, you have to have 4
Yeah.
affirmative votes.
Right.
And we may want to do a roll call too, just.
We're
Yep.
definitely gonna do a roll call.
So. Oh, so it's been, a motion's been made and seconded.
We have a
so
motion
are you
and a
looking
second
for
on the table.
discussion?
Discussion.
We're having discussion right now.
Okay.
I think the appropriate way to do this would just be one at a time. We have an applicant, we'll address that applicant. If majority, if we get 4 votes, then we're done there, and if not, we have to consider proceeding.
Well, I can go first, since I'm at the end of the table.
Yeah.
I had a chance to talk to all 4 applicants on Friday and Saturday, and I didn't know 2 of them very well at all. I didn't know any of them very well, and I'm impressed by all 4 of them, and that's from the heart. I really am. All 4, any of them would be as a policymaker with us. I was reflecting on the kind of documentation we're asking for people in applications just isn't necessarily have anything to do with what's really important and how we make our selection. And
Correct.
we're
That's
in
what I'm
that spot right now. What I'm looking for is someone who's got some history with the village, has either served on previous boards or commissions, has enough longevity that they've been exposed to how this government works, how groups like the FCA and Main Street and other groups work. I am I'm looking for how is that person, a sense of how that person will complement the people who are already on this council. And I'm very mindful of the first thing that David Goldberg said, which was that we are acting in proxy of residents. This is an election, and I'm trying to think about representing the community and selecting another member. This isn't just another volunteer opportunity. It's not like a commission to me. It's not like Main Street Board. This is we're electing one of the leaders of the community. So it's a pretty heavy responsibility. So that's what I'm thinking about. And I do have a preferred candidate, and it's probably not Dan, because I'm also looking at, and because I've had David Goldberg's job, is where are we putting our talent? And how are we going to make sure that the Planning Commission is adequately staffed with the right, with people that can really do what we need them to do? And what skills might be missing here? For me, looking at, we've got one person who hasn't lived here a long time, another person who hasn't a lot of any government experience or volunteer experience. So I'm contemplating Dan or Al, and frankly, I'd rather see Dan stay on the Planning Commission. I think they need the bench strength there, and I think he's the right person for that job. I think they can do without Al Ludwig. And thinking about Al, because I did serve with him on a village task force, when we pulled together resources for the Pickering Barn, we were trying to decide what to do with that. We pulled together about 6 people from around the community to work with Susan to just figure out how to make that happen. We couldn't do it, but what I saw in Al is a person who can absorb a lot of information quickly, help us move toward an action, and hold the person who had that responsibility to account to follow through on that. And I was impressed by that, and I'm glad I had the chance to work with him on that. So I'm gonna vote for Al. I'm going to not support Dan in this particular case. And I apologize, Dan, and anybody that we're talking about you as though you're not here. That's so rude, but, you know.
Nature of the business. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and I went first. All right.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
guess
I'll
we'll
just say thank you to all the applicants, and I feel like we're privileged here in Franklin to have like top-tier talent. I always say I do my best work for free because I volunteer for so much, and that is, like pro bono to the communities in which I benefit from and I give. And so thank you for the skill sets of the applicants are, very monetary level expertise and skills that anyone would pay for. So I just think that we're privileged to have people volunteer those skills that they paid a lot for and have honed. And so we are like totally grateful to that. Obviously, there's no easy choice here. I will just say there's 3 eligible candidates. I passed Bashir on the street, knocking doors, probably for 3 months of the summer. So literally we have walked the same shoes. And it is not easy being told to go away, having doors slammed in your face, being yelled at, being criticized, being, I'm gonna call the police. It is hard, and people will tell you, I didn't vote for you, I don't want you on my property, or I didn't vote for you, but I still want to talk to you. It takes tough skin to do that. Obviously, Al, I've been to your house for dinner. I mean, I love your family. You guys supported me, just welcomed me to the neighborhood. I mean, there was no paying of dues. It was just come and meet all the people that we love. And you've always been a level-headed ear when I was on zoning and just talking to me about issues, and your experience speaks for itself. And Dan, I mean, I remember sitting in the audience with you when you first moved to the village, and you came and introduced yourself, and you were like, I just moved here and I want to get involved. And I was like, oh my God, like, we're kindred spirits. Like, we don't know what's going on. We like, don't know if there's a spot for us. We don't know what the opportunities hold. But, you know, we're here, we're giving our evenings. We have skills and passion to give. And we're going to make it happen because this is close to our hearts. And so ever since you came to that meeting and we both sat, it was during COVID and we were squished together, and probably not the safest, but like, I've been following you on planning and your trajectory, and I see you running on Telegraph with your double stroller, and it's just probably to the extent of stalking, but you know, I definitely like, it's very difficult to make a decision, and we have exceptional candidates, and if we are ever in need of volunteers, I would definitely go to this group first. And I'm so happy that you moved here. I have like all these ideas in my head that I want to talk to you about. So thank you for coming and staying and not being discouraged. And so I just feel like this is a great pool of candidates. So I do vote, I'm going to vote yes for Dan.
Okay. David?
No.
Actually,
Well, we're not there yet. We're not there
Oh,
yet. This is
sorry.
discussion.
oh, we're still in discussion.
Yeah, we're still in discussion.
Gotcha, I wasn't sure where we were at right there, okay.
Oh, I guess no
We
one,
haven't voted.
sorry.
We haven't.
We're not there.
voted yet.
And it will be based off of motion.
I didn't know how to end it.
Yeah, yeah.
Without, you know,
I
I
just
was trying to
followed
look
you.
for a period at the end of my
Snaps.
sentence.
We'll just do snaps. Yeah.
My thoughts are very much along the lines of Pam's. For this particular position, I do think that prior involvement is a big deal, only because it gives us a track record of the applicant's ability to manage the schedule with their work life and family life. The day of the week works for them, you know, you find out, oh, Monday's not a great day for me. So I do take a lot of my decision in the fact that the applicant has served on a board before, of which two of them are. One of our applicants, as we've come to find, doesn't even qualify for the position, as I mentioned to you when I spoke to you on the phone and reiterate today, please get involved in the village. Make sure Dana knows that you want to be on the list. So, I asked you to do the same. And as far as Bashir, same thing, I say the same thing to you, although I wouldn't necessarily support you for this position because of the criteria that I hold in this. I think your dedication has been great. You garnered 700 votes at a village election, which speaks a lot as to the residents' support for you. And I do encourage you to also continue to try and find an open position. I mean, as we speak right now, Angelina's seat is open on the ZBA, so we will have to fill a ZBA position immediately.
No one applied, but, yeah.
From what I know as of right now. So, for the two of you, I encourage you both to continue. And I think you would both be assets to the village and bring unique backgrounds between each of you. I struggle too. We have two excellent planning commissioners. Both are super qualified. To me, the difference between the two is that I feel that our planning commission still could use some additional leadership and direction. And I personally think that Dan is an excellent candidate at doing that. His skill set is something that I'm concerned, him being the only analytical lawyer on the planning commission. And before I became on council, having served on planning for 15 years, there was my sort of legal analytical mind there. And I sort of had this fear that if now Dan leaves, and we have to, you know, bring someone in new that might not fill that void, that analytical, that legal aspect, that first view of ordinances, so that they're vetted out and in a better condition when they come to us, so that we don't have to do so much ordinance work, are all things that I fear could get lost in losing Dan in that regard. And then I agree that having another analytical lawyer certainly helps on council, although as it is, there's already 3 attorneys on council, so I fear adding the 4th attorney here and losing that on planning is my biggest fear in having, losing Dan on planning. So those are my comments.
I speak as someone who has had no experience serving in any capacity, so I recognize that having a desire to be involved and going about it in an unconventional way by these standards still has value. I still have a perception as a resident of this village, and I've been here for 7 years, and I don't know that that's the only, that should be the barrier of entry for someone to serve in this capacity. I feel like the perspective I bring is someone who's, one, not an attorney, and someone who's had a deep role serving in the village already, aside from living here and raising a family here and understanding its challenges. And so I do think there is a home for that, and I am torn. I've had a chance to connect with Bashir directly, and I know the sheer amount of effort that man has just to be involved here, period. You have young kids, and you've been here for 7 years, and you've been a tireless advocate, and I think, you know, I'd be remiss not to call that out. And my vote for Dan is because he served on the Planning Commission already. And I was going to say the same thing to you. There should absolutely be a home on one of those committees if that's the barrier to entry to getting a majority of votes for this particular seat. As it seems like that's what's going on. And you know, that's the interest of the current council, is having that experience. So Bashir, I invite you to channel that tireless energy into continuing to serve in those capacities. It would be a damn shame if you don't end up with one of those seats simply because of that. And my interest in Dan is because the longevity in serving. You know, I think of what is it that the village needs in order to continue this work, to see the kind of progress that suits the electorate today. And I look at the average age of the village, and it's, you know, 48 years, and that gives someone decades of opportunity to continue to serve. And Dan, if you're the kind of person who stayed at a law firm and has dealt with the rigor and the ask of that for your entire career, it says to me this is someone who has the energy to give to this village in the ways that you both have. And that's of interest to me. That's something I plan to do, and I'm learning every day. So, Keneal, please, the same thing. I'm probably merely a month after where you would be if you held this seat, and your experience as a chief of staff absolutely prepares you to be in this position, because truly it is, you know, understanding how to collaborate with and move the needle. And so, you know, for me, it's the energy to give to this, the energy to take this 2-year seat and parlay it through good work and ethical decision-making to continue to serve the village. And because of that, I understand that we want a deep bench on planning, but we also need someone to be a deep bench here. And to, you know, earn the trust and the vote of our electorate time and time again. And Dan has that ability just based on where he is at in his career. So that's my take on this. And Bashir, please, I'll say the same thing to you, Keneal. If you don't continue to serve, it would be a real shame. It would be a loss to this community in more ways than we could even, you know even at this point. But I look forward to working with you both in other official capacities in the future.
Yep, and I'll go. So, I comically, you had talked about patience. I am not a patient person. What I do have is drive, passion, resilience, and you know, I think from a professional standpoint, analytical ability. But the reason that I point to that is that I got involved right when I moved to this community. I ran for election not short after becoming eligible for it because of the drive, the passion, the resilience. I didn't start my credentials to be qualified or to serve in the capacity that I could the day that I stepped into this village. I did it through all the professional development, all the different volunteerism that I did, the coalition building, just every step of the way. And so I really want to see that drive. I want to see that passion. I want to see that resilience. And the reason that I asked the question about will you be seeking or will you be running for election 2 years from now is a couple of reasons. And part of that is, one, what is your drive, passion, and resilience to continue to serve this community past this 2-year window? And the truth is, we don't have a strong onboarding process into the council position as it sits today. And so it truly takes you generously a year in order to be able to really be going full motor. And so that gives us 1 year to get the best out of this person. I view this 2-year ability as the ability to demonstrate them to, one, learn the bearings of being on council and demonstrate yourself in this capacity to the community so that when we get to that point in 2 years, they can judge you based off of what you have done and how you've served in that capacity. And so I find that extremely important, and for those reasons, that's why I nominated Dan. I support Dan. I think it is important that we don't use this as merely an opportunity to have somebody sit for 2 years, but to be able to really use it for a strategic purpose, and that is to, one, provide additional runway to continue having the gears moving on this body, and two, to demonstrate yourself to the community for the next upcoming election cycle.
Okay.
Dana, let's have you take a vote.
Roll call.
A roll call, please.
Trustee Hansen?
What are you looking for?
It would just be a yes or no.
Yes or no on
nomination.
Dan.
Yeah.
On
mo-
Dan? No.
Yeah.
President Goldberg?
No.
Trustee Gates?
Yes.
Trustee Solly?
Yes.
Trustee Salata?
Yes.
Motion fails.
All right, so we can keep going through entertaining motions, but it does not appear we're gonna necessarily get anywhere today. Tough decision for all of us.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So is this about the sort of new guard and the old guard kind of a thing? I'm getting a sense that, is there anything to that, or is just me being oversensitive? Because the rationale I heard about Al, I mean, Al's got, what I love about what Al's bringing is his relationships with different municipalities, so we can quickly pick up on. He's got relationships, we've got a deal going with Farmington Hills, there may be more. I saw that as currency, and I'd like to know why Al wouldn't be acceptable to you guys. And I'm sort of throwing it out because the three of you voted for Dan. We've all acknowledged Dan's stellar, no question about that. But is there a reason that you'd rather have him than?
Yeah, I'll be the first to go.
Sure.
One, the exact reasons why Dan would be amazing on the planning commission are skill sets that would make him amazing here as well. So to say, you'll do awesome staying at the planning commission is a disservice to what he could serve in this capacity, which is a policy-making body. Second of all, following the planning commission, I've agreed with Dan on more issues than I have on Al. So again, as a representative democracy, me representing the positions that I have, I'm more aligned with Dan. There's my vote.
Fair enough.
I will say I don't think Al's old guard, it's some, I mean, I don't even know what that means, but it's a like mentality, he is very open-minded. He is very receptive to new ideas, and I think that's a mentality. You can be closed to new ideas, regardless of how long you've lived in the village, or how long you've lived in Michigan, or how long you've lived in this country. So I just feel like, you know, there's a I don't know what the old guard, new guard is, but I think that I never said that he wasn't acceptable. In my comments, literally, they have the same tenure on planning. They have different backgrounds. I value like pro bono work, volunteerism, civic service. It takes a lot to sacrifice time with your loved ones, like you can see in my acceptance speech, and to say, I'm going to do this for other families and not give this to my family.
Yeah.
And he has 2 young girls, and he came straight from work. You could tell he walked in. And to me, that says, like, he is, you know, teaching not only, you know, his family, but the village, like, sometimes you need to sacrifice, and sometimes you need to, you know, give to others before you give to themselves. And I really, really, really value civic service, pro bono work, volunteerism, and I saw a lot of that in his application. And I don't want to presume, because I think I'm not a talent expert, but presume that pigeonhole him to planning, or even Al to planning, and say that we need you on planning so you can't come up to council. Because to me, just what I know in workforce organization, when you do not promote talent, or when you presume talent's going to stay, they usually don't. And so you have to develop them and show them that you're invested in them, because they will leave. Like, Al was very transparent and said, I'll probably leave planning. Like, we didn't ask that to Dan. Dan didn't say that, but because he didn't say that, we're gonna presume he's gonna stay on planning. We don't know that.
I know.
You know, and same thing happened to me with, like, a lot of the organizations within the village. You know, I'm not just gonna stay because I'm good at, you know, one thing. I need to, you know, we need to respect the talent, and we need to look at it and not make assumptions that someone is going to stay where they're at because we think they're good at it. Like, that's why you elevate them. That's why you use them in different ways. That's why you leverage their skill set. And that's what I want to do with Dan's skill set.
I'm poking around to find, are there some areas where there might be agreement, and where might we talk? That's what I'm trying to do.
And I think we're all pretty, I mean, I think we're close in the aims that we're getting toward. I just think, I mean, I agree with you. I think there is this effort component for me. Like, to put yourself out there in that way that makes you incredibly vulnerable. And I know that, with the exception of this year, both Dan and Al chose not to run. And did not choose to put themselves in that capacity. So it would have been an easy decision had we just taken the 4th place finisher from that race and said, you know, that's someone who put themselves in that position, who took it upon themselves to put in the effort, the months-long effort that it would have taken to be elected officially in this capacity. And I think, like, there is this calculation, Pam, where, and I don't have any preconceived notions around old and new guard. I'm so new to this. I don't know if I have any. I don't have that perception. I don't have the basis to have that perception at all. But I think, where can you get the best out of people for as long as you can? And it is possible that Dan becomes the liaison to the Planning Commission at some point in the future. That he has leveraged in that capacity, and this one too, and in other ways that we can deploy him across the community for decades. This is someone who, if we do invest in him now as a high potential villager, we stand to gain and to benefit from someone like that for a very long time, again, in very similar ways as we have with the 2 of you. So that's for me. It's effort, and how much can this person continue to give to this community as a reflection of the work. And there has been this very long, steady component of leadership. Both Dan has been selected by his peers and has served in civic capacities, even in the span of his, 20-year career already. So this is someone who has demonstrated that he already has the appetite to do that and the continued appetite to do that as someone who's only been here 2.5 years. So to me, this is someone we get for a very long time. And that's what it is for me, effort and how much longer can this person serve.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry to give you that impression, by the way, Pam, that it's, that there is this,
I was poking around
Yeah.
deliberately to see where are the points of disagreement, where are the potential points of agreement, so we could start, because right now it's a stalemate, and we're looking at another meeting. I'm trying to figure out a way
Yeah.
to
Yeah, yeah.
move past.
and I appreciate the
This.
diplomacy. I mean, it is, I appreciate the approach.
I would just say though, I think there's better ways to posture it than like, okay, you three, is there an old guard, new guard thing going on here?
Sorry if I offended you.
I'm not offended, I just think that there's a better way to engage the
Well,
discourse.
let me practice for next time.
Okay, it's almost 9:00. I personally need to do some more reflecting on this. We've heard a lot of engaging input on the issue. I do not see us reaching necessarily resolution right now, nor do I think we need to make the other people that are in the crowd right now wait. It's our decision, it's our time, it's not their time. So I'm gonna move on. I am gonna call a special meeting for 6 o'clock this Wednesday. Well, that will be,
Just to be clear, we do have a planning
Planning.
commission meeting that evening. So calling a special meeting at 6 o'clock would give you just an hour flat to talk. I don't wanna discourage you from that, but we would need to quickly then, and for staff, we have to quickly readjust and get planning ready to go at 7.
Could we do 5:30?
Yeah, we could do 5:30. We could be ready to go as early as you guys are.
yes, tomorrow's too soon. I think I might even need an opportunity to re-speak with each of our candidates, all of our candidates. Okay, then if you think that's not enough time, then I'm gonna call a special meeting for 5:30 on Wednesday,
The 11th?
December 11th at 5:30 for the sole purpose of consideration of the new appointment of a council member. All right?
Yes.
All right.
Can I make a point? Do the candidates?
No, I
all
don't think the
have-
candidates
okay.
need to be here. If they want to be here, they're welcome, but I mean, at this point, I don't know if it's necessarily any more input from them. I think we need to, in our own minds, wrap our hands around this and be big boys and big girls and make a decision.
Let me see. Does that vote for, or does that work for council? Doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, does that work for like
Yep,
the
5:30
administrative?
works perfect. I'll go ahead and send out a confirmation email at the end of this meeting. We'll make sure that that's posted on our website so that people are aware. And of course, if anybody calls in the next couple of days for status update, we'll be sure to let them know that the next time the council will be meeting will be the 11th at 5:30 here in council chambers. That's good, thank you.
David? Yeah, I was just gonna say, could we move up the CDBG up before all of our reports?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so first of all, I'm gonna make a presidential decision, and I am skipping all of our reports. I don't need to hear anything from planning right now. Our chair isn't even here. I've already spoken. If any of you want to speak, I will allow that. Meg, we've received your written communications, which I must say are a blessing. I must also say you write very well. Our packets have been wonderful, tons of information. I like how you've laid things out at the beginning. I love your proposed resolutions. Don't feel like you have to do that all the time. Maybe on the more complicated ones, it's helpful. But I love to see the energy that you're putting into our packets, so I thank you for that. So I'm gonna skip reports altogether today. We've done enough talking up here. So I'm gonna open at 8:52, our public hearing on our allocation of community development block grant funding for the year 2025. We have received letters from several different bodies, three of which who we've engaged with in the past, a fourth which is an organization dear to my heart, the Franklin Baseball League, Baseball and Softball League, I must say, has also asked for consideration. So let's start with allowing, well, I guess our public hearing would start with members of the public. So if anybody from the public would like to speak on our decision to allocate funding for CBDG for 20.
CDBG, Community Development Block.
Yeah, CDBG for 2025. So anybody from the public, well, are you with one of the organizations? Yeah, we'll give you a second next. We're gonna let's open it up to the public. If anybody on the public wants to speak.
Did we say who applied so the public knows in case they haven't looked at the packet?
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Or Mike?
I can go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So
Cover
today
it.
we're gonna see some applications from Next, from the Organization of Birmingham Youth Assistance. We have one from Haven, and we also have one from the Franklin Little League. You have three that were in your packets that we received ahead of time, and we had that one late submittal there from the Birmingham Youth Assistance that we received after hours on Friday. So that would have been just loose at your spot when you showed up. There isn't a formal application per se for this process. It is, the funds are restricted. They're from HUD, and they trickle all the way down through state and county and come down over here. I put together a little summary of how we have used those funds in the past and some of the funding obligations or requirements for these. What we asked the organizations to do was tell us briefly about who you are and what you do and what you would use these funds for, so we can ensure that they're aligning with these CDBG plans. Some of these we've worked with in the past. Actually, 3 out of the 4 we've worked with in the past. We're allocated from the county a total of $7,000, and that's pretty consistent with what we get every year to go ahead and pass on.
All right, so let's start. Is there a representative from Haven, since that's first in our list? Anyone from Haven? Nobody?
Or public?
Anybody back there from Haven? Nope. Anybody here from Next? Hi there. Oh, Chris.
This is her, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. I have some newsletters that
Get those to Dana, we'll get them distributed there. Thank you, Chris.
which is in my letter today, but my name is Chris Braun. I'm with Next. I've been with Next for about 10 years. Some of you probably don't know Next yet, as you're new to the council, so I look forward to introducing Next to you. We are a 50-plus community center. We've been in business for more than 45 years, and we care for the most vulnerable population of your community. So we do have a great active center where people come and enjoy amazing lectures and fitness and art and travel and a lot of ways to just keep people connected. A theme I heard a lot tonight, a lot of ways to socialize and have coffees and book groups and discussions. But what the block grant money does for us is allow us to care for your most vulnerable residents. Those who call us that something as simple as I need a wheelchair because, my mom's coming to town, to I've lost my husband and I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to pay the bills. I don't know how, where everything is. I'm sad and lonely and I need support. We also provide Meals on Wheels, reliable transportation to about 4 or 5 miles around Franklin. And we serve about 60 of your residents that are not members of Next. You don't have to be a member to enjoy or take advantage of the senior services we provide. So I could go on with some very heart-wrenching stories of people who've contacted us in very difficult situations. And the population is growing, the senior population. Every community is getting a little bit older. The needs are getting more diverse and necessary and more urgent. So the more I like being here just so maybe your residents can learn more about Next, so it's not an urgency that they call us. Sometimes it gives us a little time to work on, I'm trying to move my mom out or take away her car keys, in a couple of months. So how do I do that? Most often, unfortunately, it's usually an immediate need that needs to be solved. So we're here and work very, very hard for the residents here in Franklin to allow them to live gracefully and age in home. I know that probably 98% of residents prefer to stay in their own home. It's more affordable, it's more comfortable, it's familiar, and we are here to try to support that. So it is something we take very seriously, and I think we do an exceptional job, and we'd like to continue to do that. Did I do that?
No.
No. Thought I stepped out of court or something. Anyhow, we'd like to continue to do that so we can, serve your residents as well as they need to be served, and with the resources and support services that we can provide.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Can we ask questions?
Sure.
Okay, do we give Next any money or funding?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
there is a budget allocation right now that's set aside for $10,000 that we do give to Next.
Okay, and Chris, thank you so much for putting numbers in this application. Like 76 residents from Franklin came and used 186 times. Like that is very demonstrative of how we can measure our
For sure.
participation. And so I love numbers and data and the story it tells. So I really appreciate you taking the time to, I know it wasn't easy to extract those numbers, so I appreciate you taking the time to put that in here.
Well, we're very data-driven, so we know where to spend our money, and the $10,000 that we do get from Franklin does help support the members that come to Next, because it costs us about $435 per head to keep the lights on and keep the programs going, and our staff paid, and the buses running and insured. The other 60 that are in your community that are not resident, or not members, we don't get reimbursed for that. That's just support services that we pull out of our general fund to make sure that there's nobody in the community that is doing without, especially, like I said, you're most vulnerable, where they frequently are alone. The majority of 65 plus are very often, alone. They've lost a spouse, et cetera. And it's a whole different set of unique needs. So that 10,000 does help us, have an art teacher, a lecturer, fitness instructor, but not the rest of it.
Yeah, I will say that I have two sons that go to Mid-Val.
Yeah.
And they always sneak over to the pickleball court. And
Yes.
then all of the Next participants invite them in, and you guys are
sure.
always doing quality programming, and it is thrilling for both my sons and I think the pickleball players to connect. So I love what you do and the services you
you.
provide, and so thank you for being here.
I appreciate that.
What is the difference between the members versus non-members? How does somebody become a member? And then what is the difference in service received between the two?
Well, usually members, they can also take advantage of our busing and our Meals and Wheels and things like that. The non-members usually are a little bit disconnected, and they might be less mobile and not coming to Next. So the ones that come to Next can still come on a bus ride. In fact, we have several that do that. Come to Next and take a class or listen to a lecture. All those services are available to everyone, but the non-members are people that might be on a little tighter budget, so they're not joining, which is only $55 for the year. Most of it's complimentary, but they're usually less mobile and less comfortable leaving their home.
What's your total budget for annual budget?
You'd be surprised, it's not much, because we do get an in-kind donation from the Birmingham schools to stay at Mid-Val, and we get some municipal funding from the 4 communities we serve. So if you extract that, it's about $500,000, and we put on about 240 programs a month, and it served 1,500 people a week on that budget.
We need to invite you to our budget meeting.
We rely on a lot of volunteers, we're very fortunate.
And just so the council and the community members are aware, Chris is here tonight to talk specifically about CDBG, but she's going to be back at the start of next year. There's a lot going on with Next. They're transitioning into a new facility. And like she said, we're providing a lot of services to our residents who aren't necessarily members. So I want to give Chris the time to be able to give us a presentation, to really talk about services and find ways for us to help promote those services within our community. And that time is not tonight. So Chris and I have already spoke last week about that, and we plan on inviting her back to a council meeting here in January or February so she can dedicate that time and really engage with us about all the great services they're providing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? Anything else? Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Next in our packet is, hold on, so we have next, Good Haven. Jeremy here from the Franklin
Yeah.
Baseball League.
One of the baseball hat?
Hello.
Hey there.
Jeremy Phillips. I sit on the board of the Franklin Baseball and Softball League. We've been around since 1955. We provide access to youth baseball and softball opportunities throughout the entire year. We mainly use the fields out here for all of our baseball and softball games, but we do use neighboring fields at some of the schools and in West Bloomfield. Our goal is to make sure that every child can have access and be able to play baseball and softball during any of our seasons. We don't want to turn anyone away. We want to make sure that they can have access and play. And we feel that youth sports is a great way to learn about teamwork, learn how to work well with others. I think it's a great way to engage with our community. We have great engagement with our community, and a lot of our players come from the Franklin area. They play with us, and they play with us for several years, and then they go on and hopefully do great things in life, but they use baseball and softball as a basis for that. So I know a lot of people in the community I've met since I've been on the board that have played when they were young, and now they're successful business people and great members of the community. So
Is that what happened to you?
Played when I was 7 years old.
yeah,
Do you credit Franklin Baseball with your?
Franklin Baseball is a special place in my heart, so you don't have to, you're not gonna do any appealing here.
Yep. So with our budget every year, we are responsible for maintaining the fields here, and every year we look at what we need to have done and what we can actually accomplish for it. We're looking at a long-term project, a large project that we're looking to do, and working in cooperation with the FCA on that. But we do have regular maintenance items that we need to take care of every season, maintaining the grounds. We need to improve the fencing and different things that we're hoping to have access to some of these funds. But at our core, we want to make sure that we can provide scholarships and opportunities for anyone to play with us. So we don't want to turn anyone away. We want to be, if somebody wants to play and they can't afford the registration fees, we want to be able to say, it's fine. We have an opportunity that you can still play with us regardless. And also we get requests from families, equipment, they can't get access to bats and helmets, and all that stuff can add up fairly quickly. So we want to be able to offer those to our registrants and kids that play with us. So,
Two questions. Can you be is this open to anyone who lives?
yeah, we're not
Okay.
restricted to Franklin.
Okay.
We're open to all
So you
communities.
serve neighboring communities too? And then do we give them any money?
No, as of right now, there's not an allocation going directly to the
Okay.
baseball field.
So you rely on your registration essentially for your revenue
Registration
stream?
and fundraising. Yep, donations and everything.
So I have a question. I very much strongly believe that if we don't start to nurture and support our local organizations, that they will leave, right? Best case scenario, they continue to thrive, but elsewhere, worst case scenario, they just have to close up shop. So I want to make sure that you are prioritized. My question would be, is it better to, do you feel comfortable with the requirements of the reporting tied to CDBG? Or are we better off maybe moving a discussion to allocation of general fund where there's not those reporting requirements? We'd still expect there to be some reporting so we can ensure the accounting and it goes to the right place. But just what I don't want to happen is that if we were to make the award, then all of a sudden you guys are like, man, this reporting is pretty crazy. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think we have a good board and a good volunteer set, so I don't think that reporting would be a problem for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And then last, someone from Birmingham Youth Assistance.
Oh, that's this one. The one that came in, that was loose? Okay.
Hello, how are you? So thanks for having us. So Birmingham Youth Assistance, we are a unique program. We're one area in a countywide program that serves every school district in Oakland County. So I'm the caseworker for Birmingham Youth Assistance, and so I work directly with kids and families for short-term counseling and providing resources and supports as needed, assessing needs. And so we have a board of volunteers who create the programs and develop the programs for the Birmingham Youth Assistance program, so that and our board members live, work, play, have families that are within that Birmingham Public School District area. So part of our, the way we're structured is we are a tri-sponsorship. So the Oakland County Circuit Court Family Division provides the casework services and the casework staff. The school district provides us with our space and an office where I can meet with the families, and space for our events and our programs that we offer for kids and families. And then our local municipalities are that third piece of that third leg of our sponsorship. And so the Village of Franklin has provided us with CDBG funds that help support our board as they're developing some of the programs that serve our kids and families directly. So we greatly appreciated that support. It helps in our area for the CDBG funds. We have used that for helping kids that are low income, very low income and extremely low income, to be able to participate in camp programs, skill building programs, enrichment programs, receive mental health services and mental wellness services. Kids and families, no matter where they live, they're living in a variety of different situations, and some of our children, there are different types of families and different dynamics in families, which are really struggling through some of the hardships to kind of be able to have that extra to send their kids to those events that make kids feel like they are part of their peer groups, and to help them build new skills and new sense of self, and exploring who they are, and things that they can do, and new experiences. And so these CDBG funds go towards helping those kids that, the families don't have the means, and some of our families too. It is something that might be like, this has just been a really hard year, and we just we can't afford to have our kids involved in some of these opportunities that mean so much to how well they do in school and in their peer relationships, and relationships even with family. And so we appreciate just the support that we've received from Village of Franklin, and it goes directly to sending these kids to programming and experiences that is directly building their self-esteem, their self-worth, their confidence, and connection with other peers and healthy adults. So some of the other programs that we do have are our committee. We have a youth in service program that we recognize young people who are involved in the community, and they are giving back to the community by service. And I'm hearing all through tonight the value and your understanding as adults and families raising young children, and maybe families that maybe your kids and families are adults now. So that connection with community, it's not just that, oh, these things just happen, like that there's involvement of the members that live there and work there and play there, who are bringing these things to the community that make it a really wonderful place to live. And so our programming is really supporting our children to have opportunities to learn and express themselves through that community involvement through volunteerism. That's really part of our mission statement, is that we're strengthening our children through community involvement in the volunteerism of our adults who are helping to provide the programming for these kids. So we had about 45 young people that we recognized with our Youth in Service this past year. That included middle schoolers and high schoolers. We have a number of community events that are healthy engagement for families to come and get involved in the community. Franklin's been really wonderful in our Touch a Truck program that we have at Bingham Farms Elementary. It's an annual event. This past year, we have some of our volunteer board members who are really engaging in our family education work. And so they brought some educational materials for families. We bought some yard games. And so along with the great fun and the education and learning and sharing time together as a family and exploring all the trucks and vehicles, and of course the Franklin horse, that was a popular addition, and I'm not sure that's going to be something that we can continue to have the horse, but it's been a favorite for families for a number of years. And so but we are bringing education pieces just, even to those community events that are bringing families together. We had a pinwheel portion to that, which is really that recognition of the innocence of children and awareness of child abuse and neglect, so that families are having ways to be present with their children and really spend time with them. All the trucks were driving away, and families were still sitting in the center in the grass with their kids and not wanting to put the yard games away, because it was just a really innocent, one-on-one, genuine time together. And so we have those ability to bring those types of programs. We have a family education program coming up this year. We got our new board member, Anna Herbert, who's behind our family ed programming for this year, and we're really excited with the energy that she's bringing to our board, and will bring to the programming for our parents and children. So we have Anthony Rapito, and he brings a program called Magic of Hope, who will be coming to provide a program for middle school kids and their parents. And it's really addressing mental wellness and really, again, engaging through the use of magic and stories and hitting on some of the difficult topics and opening up those conversations for young people and parents to talk about some of those tough topics. So we're really excited for that. We engage kids we have it's a dog show that we have every year, and it engages young people to take their family pets and be able to come and really build self-esteem and self-confidence and how to handle situations when that dog's not really cooperating with you and you're standing in the center of this big crowd of people. And so there's a lot of enrichment and growth opportunities through our community programs with kids and families, and it's really bringing them together to be present as a family and support their kids. And so anyways, we appreciate this moment just to share some of the different things that we have going on with our programming, with our board of volunteers. We're really grateful to have Kurt Lawson coming and sitting in on our board meetings and being part with us, along with our superintendent. I think that, again, as you're talking about that community engagement, it helps to keep him in tune too with what's going on directly with the schools, and hearing from the superintendent and hearing from the youth assistants, caseworker, what types of families that we're seeing. There's a lot of our traditional families that need the additional support. There's a lot of single parent families. There's a lot of grandparents raising their grandchildren and other relatives raising their relative children. So a lot of different types of dynamics, and we're providing support. So that's kind of where your dollars are going, and specifically to getting kids involved and engaged in some of the innocence of camp and enrichment, and keeping them involved. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
So I don't know if you have any questions, but we appreciate your support.
How many people, do you have the statistics on how many youth are served for Franklin?
It's in the letter.
What's the number?
Yeah, I'm not sure that, I
Oh,
don't know
no,
that we
sorry,
have it
yours.
broken down from exactly from the village of Franklin, like how many kids from
Yeah.
Franklin, because there's kids that are coming from the school district.
Mhm.
There's kids that are coming, you know, from directly from, like, where they're identified through my caseload kids who are part of the school district, but
Yeah.
they live within. It's-
But in general, it looks like everything you do serves the Birmingham School District.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People that live within those
Yeah.
boundaries.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
But you said 45. Oh, did you say 45? I thought you were saying 45 Franklin families had used your,
No.
what was
no,
the
no.
45 number?
Oh, when I was talking about our youth in service, so kids that, like, we recognize 45 young people, high school and middle schoolers.
Okay, that are
who
using this.
Who were nominated to, for their good work that they're
that's
doing.
awesome.
They're out and involved in volunteering in the communities and serving, making things happen, I guess.
How is that happening?
Yeah.
I thought that was silence.
Thank you.
So thank you, appreciate your
Thank you.
consideration.
So, anybody else from the public want to speak on this subject matter?
You probably heard all you want to hear from me already tonight, but in my past, I was head of the NFWB, which is North Farmington, West Bloomfield baseball and softball. And we had about between 15 and 1,600 kids in the program. It was a big program. And so, you know, I started with the coaching, and I worked my way through head of the rules committee and the this and the that. Eventually, I became president, which the thing to learn is you always got to know who's going to be the next president. Because once I became president, I was president for like 4 years. My kids were already gone, and I was still the president. But, you know, in terms of the skills that the kids gain from the camaraderie and being with each other, and I'm with David. I think it's great for the kids, and I thoroughly support the Franklin Baseball League.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, if nobody else, I'm going to close the public hearing piece at 9:20 and move on to the next part of our agenda, which is considering the community development block grant funding for year 2025. Let me take the lead on this for a second. So just so our residents know, in our past 4 years, in 2023, 2024, we gave all $7,000 to Birmingham Youth Assistance. In 22 and 23, we split it $3,500 each between Birmingham Youth Assistance and Next. In 21, 22, we gave all $7,000 to Next. And in 2021, we gave $7,000 to Haven, who we didn't hear from today. Another item is for residents to know, as we're going to get to our committees in a minute. We do have 2 liaisons from council that participate in Next. And as Angelina noted, we do, in addition to when we give them CDBG money, we do have an annual $10,000 allocated to Next on an ongoing basis. We do also sit on and participate in Birmingham Youth Assistance organizational structure, if you will. We also have a liaison who participates in that, although I noticed that we do not have a correlative budget item allocated to them as we do to Next and participating in their organization, and we have given them money in the past. Haven, who is a wonderful organization and does amazing things for the segment of our society that is exposed to various forms of domestic violence and other types of sexual violence. And as much as I love helping them from the documentation we get from them, there has, in the course of like last year, there were only 2 residents of Franklin that actually participated in their services. Not that that diminishes what they do, but just some more background. And then Franklin Baseball Softball League is reaching out to us for the first time for participation. My general thoughts are a couple things. First, I struggle with the fact that we sit in on and participate in Next and allocate budget money to them, but don't do the same for Birmingham Youth Assistance. So, as you had mentioned earlier, David, and from discussions with Meg, I know that the BYA has some reporting struggles historically, and I would certainly consider, whether it's a budget amendment this year or certainly moving into next year, that if we're going to participate in a group's ongoing organizational basis, that we should be supporting them economically in some way. So I would certainly be an advocate of seeing that somehow Birmingham Youth Assistance finds its way into our budget along with Next. Franklin Baseball Softball League is certainly serves our residents wholeheartedly. Anyone who lives in Franklin, has children, can participate in that organization. You don't have to have a situation in your life in order to have access to that group. So I would love to see an opportunity for us to help them in funding. So personally, for this fiscal year, if given my druthers, I would like to see us add BYA to our budget so that we can get them some funding, and I'll defer to the rest of council, but how we take that $7,000, whether we gave it all to Franklin Baseball League or gave some to Haven, I would entertain that. But I don't love that we don't have someone from Haven here, and I know that's been a problem in the past. I don't think that should be a sole reason for not getting funding, but it is helpful when we get to feel and get an understanding of what these organizations, all of which are wonderful, and how they aid our community. So that is a little piece that I miss.
Yeah,
David?
I'll follow up. So I support, similar to what you said. I think that I brought up earlier in the year, looking at using CDBG as an opportunity to give to our local communities that are based in this community, and it's just something that we hadn't historically thought about doing, but it is a constant revenue stream that isn't coming directly from the taxpayers. And it's something that we need to invest in or we will lose. And I think one of the nice things with the Franklin Baseball Association is the number of organizations that actually benefit from it as well. So it's not just a benefit to the Franklin Baseball and Softball Association, it's also a benefit to the FCA because we're bringing people onto their grounds to appreciate the grounds, again, promote the FCA, collect additional membership. And so for me, I fully support allocating the funds for this year to the Franklin Baseball and Softball Association.
I can comment.
Please, anyone like?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I backfilled for Mike Seltzer as the Franklin liaison to Next while he was in Arizona in the winter months. And I did it because I felt like I knew enough about the organization. I knew we'd allocated money annually to them. But what I learned was it's an amazing organization. Chris is right. She's one of the best program managers I've ever met. She runs people through that organization. Literally, this elementary school is crowded with people fighting over pickleball courts, occupying the library, taking classes. And what I've also learned is that Birmingham Next is unique among the senior centers that are around the Detroit metro area, in that it's very much tuned into its community. You know, this is the organization that does book clubs. They have political discussions. They've got a Democratic club. They've got a Republican club. They've got all kinds of things that anybody who wanted to find their tribe could find that over at Next. So I've really grown to love that organization. At the same time, I'm with you. You know, we have over the years looked for like ways to keep the money in the neighborhood, but we hadn't until the baseball league came. Identified a group of people that would meet the qualifications for CDBG funding. So I was an advocate for Next because we do have 70-plus individuals who are members or who use it. And the crisis users really are the crisis users. Our $10,000 is about $150 a person. That seems like a very reasonable village expense to me. And we should be more involved. So under the circumstances, and I also support what you said, David, just to allocate some budget money for support Birmingham Youth Assistance. We're blessed with very strong not-for-profits that serve our community in different ways. I'm going to support the Baseball League this year because they came. And because I'm aware that, I know from Jeremy, because he sits on the Main Street Board, that the Baseball League has a project. They want to upgrade the fields this year. They do serve Franklin youth, and they need, and I've got a granddaughter who's in travel softball, and I mean, it's really expensive. So I think that clearing out barriers for young people to play baseball and softball is really important. So I would support that as well.
I don't know if I have anything to add, because I think I agree with everything you've put forward. I think about the sheer reach of the Franklin Baseball and Softball Association and how many residents within Franklin actually utilize that, and because it does take place within village limits, but I can recognize, and on a personal level, my own mother took advantage of senior services, and it was a huge bolster to her being engaged in her own community, and I know how important that was for her. So, I think having a tie to Franklin and again, the sheer reach of people within the Franklin Baseball Association, Baseball and Softball Association, has me leaning toward that, but also the Next organization, the number of residents in Franklin who utilize it, I think makes it a very compelling reason to give some funding.
I agree with everything that's been said. What I am assessing is that we already give Next a contribution. We can look at giving BYA a contribution, and everything that Birmingham Youth Assistance said, like serving youth, I think Franklin Baseball does that. Summer camps, activities, programming. I feel like your missions, are the same. You're aligning your values. Obviously, different disenfranchised groups. But I also do like spreading our funding across different community programs. And thank you so much, Meg, for showing us what our last 5 years of allocations have been, so we can see, okay, we gave to Haven, we gave to Next, we gave to BYA. We have never given to Franklin Baseball, and I just fear that, like, if those Franklin baseball fields are empty, it's going to look like downtown, and we have empty businesses and empty fields, and I know that's a worry from speaking with residents. So I think that the council is probably aligned in, giving close to home.
Okay. I think we're ready for a motion if somebody wants to make a motion. Based on what we've discussed, and we will be doing some, it appears, in the near future budget amending. So notwithstanding how things shake out today, I do want Birmingham Youth Assistance to know that I think we're all serious about that, and that rather than necessarily having to use CDBG funds to help assist your wonderful organization, we might just begin to just consider making that a budget item. And we can even consider whether we're giving enough to Next and Birmingham Youth Assistance. So I think in that regard, we are contributing to them, and we did give Birmingham Youth Assistance and Next the money between the two of them, either in totality or split the last 3 years. So I think this is an appropriate year for the Franklin Baseball League to get it, and I would like us to, again, continue, even if it's this year, to at least consider the BYA allocation. Next is already in this year's budget. So if I can get a motion from anybody to consider allocation of our 2025 CDBG funds.
I'll make a motion to consider giving the $7,000 of the CDBG funds to the Franklin Baseball and Softball Association.
Second?
A second.
Support? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. So, Anna, all three of the organizations that are here today are organizations that greatly serve the Birmingham, Bloomfield area. And since some of you are leaving today, I'm going to go a little out of school here. In addition to the other things I do in my life, I am a Mason, and the lodge that I'm a member of is the Birmingham Lodge, which serves the Birmingham, Bloomfield, Franklin communities. And one of the things that Masons do are participate in charitable events and charity. I ask all three of your organizations to reach out to me in the near future and see what we can do to have our lodge participate in charitable contributions. We do scholarships. So all wonderful organizations that are perfect for what we strive to do. So please get my number, and regardless of what happens today, reach out to me individually to see what our lodge could do for your organizations. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. We already did it. We already took care of that. So I apologize. Our old business is basically handling the next three items are sort of organizational items. We, every election cycle, need to elect a new president pro tem, as well as make appointments to all of our various committees and liaisons. And typically that takes place at what the charter requires us to do as an organizational meeting, which we did have and took place on November 18th. Unfortunately, at that time, we did not have a certified election, so although we all participated in that meeting, those of us had not been sworn in. Our three trustees had not been sworn in, and I was still a trustee, so we never took action. So because of our hour and getting late into the day, and since we did, in a public meeting, discuss all of these items, what I'm gonna suggest is, I'm just gonna kind of read off what we had already discussed in all of the different committees and the members that we're suggesting to be, and anybody's welcome to comment on it and make adjustments accordingly. But if we are still in agreement with how that lays out, then maybe we can just approve it all en masse and not have to do it item by item. If I could ever find it in our,
Can I ask the question?
you can do whatever you want.
Okay. When we come back Wednesday at 5:30, is the application process is open or no?
What are we talking about?
For, the vacancy appointment for trustee?
No, that's closed.
It's been closed,
Yes,
okay, so
it
no
is
new
still-
applicants?
Correct, no new applicants.
So the information we have here can be what we use?
Yes, that'll be what you're basing your decision on, and I won't have anything new for you. It'll
Okay.
just be time for you to have conversations and
Okay.
work that through.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't gonna be like reviewing additional
Yes.
documentation from applicants or new applicants, okay.
Nope, we should be good with that.
Found it. Okay, so, at our organizational meeting, we discussed the various committees and liaisons, and I'm just gonna read through our list. Now, my list, and something we'll discuss later, we did at that meeting also consider renaming renaming one of these. We actually renamed one at that meeting, and we want to consider renaming what we call the Personnel Committee. But our proposed allocation of committees was our village treasurer to remain Lance Vanek, village deputy treasurer to remain Mark Hankey. The new council liaison to the fire commission was going to be me. The village representative to the Birmingham Cable Casting Board would remain to be Rick David. Our village representative to Birmingham Next would be Michael Seltzer, and then as a backup, whoever our new appointed council person would be. Village representative to Main Street Franklin would also be Mike Seltzer and Angelina in a backup capacity.
Oh, no, not backup capacity.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you're right. No, you're right, I apologize. That's right, that's not for next. We have two participants and voting members of the Main Street Board, so Michael and Angelina would sit on the Main Street Board. Our council liaison to the Historic District Commission would also be our new council appointee. Our council liaison to the Planning Commission would be David Solly. Our Village Finance Committee would consist of Pam Hansen, Angelina, and myself, as well as Rick David and Lance, our treasurer, to also assist based on both of their wealth of knowledge in budgeting and financing. The Village Legal Committee would be Pam, David Solly, and myself. The Village Liquor Control Committee would be David Solly, Mike Seltzer, and the new council appointee. The Village Personnel Committee, which is subject to renaming, would be Abby Gates, Mike, and Pam. Our Village Infrastructure Committee, which at one time was roads and then also at one time was pathways and sidewalks. I think we've decided to combine all of those items as well as stormwater issues into a Village Infrastructure Committee, which would consist of Abby, Angelina, and our new appointee. And then it was Birmingham Youth Assistance, where Mike would remain the rep and Abby would back him up. Is there anything else, any other little bodies that I'm supposed to address?
I think it was a backup.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't you say we originally had you on next and you thought B1?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can these committees act without a majority?
Not official business.
When you say act.
Like if, like for the personnel committee, if it's just Abby and Pam, can they make a decision if Mike's not here? I just don't want to halt progress.
So, remember, the committees don't really make any decisions.
Okay.
All you do is sort of
Discussion.
and
Basically,
organize, and then
Or their
comes
arms and
back.
legs, too.
Yeah, I
And
definitely.
then
think
everything
that.
still comes back to us for approval. So if you only have two people at your meeting,
Yeah.
absolutely, there's no quorum requirement.
Okay.
if you're voting, you're just voting to make a recommendation to us. We as a body still have to make
And
a
it's
final
important to give
decision.
alternatives, not just say, we want to, here's our
End result.
end result.
Right.
You guys have to have a discussion as a deliberative body here. You have to give alternatives. You guys can't make that decision.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't putting ourselves in a position where progress can't be made if
No,
not
no.
President
majority.
Goldberg, I think you covered everything except the president tempo.
Oh, I did, that wasn't on my list.
And
And
I
we
think you
had,
guys can just do a motion to approve everything that you said.
we do the president pro tem separate, I
Okay.
believe, yeah, because I
Yeah,
think
that's how we've
that's
done it in the
correct.
past.
And we had discussed, based on her experiences having been president before, that Pam be the president pro tem, I thought we said, right?
You did. We didn't.
Oh, I did, oh, we didn't discuss that one?
I don't think we
All right, we
We
didn't, that was
tabled
me.
it until
So,
we get
let's do this then. Let's deal with that first. So, anybody, let's have some discussion on the president pro tem. And I don't plan on missing a lot, so,
This is wrong too. I don't think it's called Cablecast, just because I know Rick had said that. I
it's
just
the
don't want-
Birmingham, it's technically the Birmingham Bloomfield Cable Board, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be.
It's the Birmingham Bloomfield Cable Board.
Okay.
Oh, Birmingham Area Cable Board.
Yes, Birmingham Area Cable Board.
BACB,
Yes.
alphabet soup tonight, right?
All right. I should know that. I'd be nice to say it on that. 15 years ago. All right, so as far as our proposed positions, we have those down. Let's address the president pro tem. Any discussion on the matter? Anybody interested in the position outside of my suggestion of Pam, only because she's run meetings before, but certainly not anything special
David,
to
could you
do?
just, sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to cut
so
you off.
go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, could you kind of run through what the role of President Pro Tem is?
So the president pro tem is, basically sole role is to serve in the capacity of the president when the president is unavailable or incapacitated. So that would include outside of this meeting, if there was ever something that I had to attend that I was unable to attend, the president pro tem would attend in my place. When it comes to meetings, running our meetings, again, if I'm not here, the president pro tem would sit in this chair and run the meeting. Outside of those two purposes, the president pro tem has no higher capacity on council, no greater vote. It's not a, it's just basically to fill in this chair when the president is unavailable.
There's only one section in the charter that basically summarizes exactly what President Goldberg said.
Okay.
Does it rotate or it stays that way for?
We can do whatever we want, but it stays that way
Until the
typically.
next election.
Now, we have been short of somebody leaving council and there's
Yeah, 'cause you did it,
their
right?
spot opening up. We have not been, in the year in between the election cycle, changing our committees. We've been pretty much so having them go for 2 years at a time. Of course, if somebody's schedule affects it, just can't do it anymore, isn't comfortable doing it anymore, of course, we can always replace it. But our intention going in is that these would be 2-year seats until the next election cycle and the next organizational meeting.
Do you want it?
I'd like to do it. I talked to David about it when he was calling all of us about our different committee appointments. My experience is it's a very limited role. It's somebody to sit in the chair when he's not here, and David's always here. And it's a seat filler, basically. I'm hoping he doesn't ask me to go to a lot of things if I were to take the job outside of here.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
think
how much I'll be
you're more
into
than a
it.
seat filler, Cam. Don't talk about yourself.
No, but the role of a is temporary while the
Yeah, 'cause
president's
if you're
gone.
on,
So,
you
yeah,
just shift the seat
I'd like
over.
to do
You don't
it
get
because,
anything more.
yeah,
anymore.
and it's an easy slide in, so I'm happy to do it,
Okay.
yeah.
Anyone else interested in it?
Happy to learn from you guys. I think you've already been running these meetings very well, so.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and move that Pam Hansen be the president pro tem. I can get a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Everybody comfortable with the positions that we've allocated? We tried to take some real consideration into putting people where they wanted to be. So short of any further discussion, I'll go ahead and move that we appoint each of the treasurers, liaisons, board members, commissions of all the various capacities that we mentioned earlier be approved as suggested. And get a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, excellent. We have our committees. In our packet, again, we also discussed all of these dates at our organizational meeting, but we have also all of the proposed meeting dates for all of our bodies for 2025. And that was in our packet. You
75. Page 75, yeah.
So,
You got 2 more pages than we did.
we had a couple of these dates pointed out in red. I thought we had decided that we would let each of those bodies determine whether or not they felt.
We did. The only change that you'll see here from the one at the organizational meeting is that first HDC meeting on January 8th. I believe that we decided we were going to not hold that one based on timing. Everything else we noted and read, but decided that we would move forward with those. So it would be everything on this list except for the January 8th meeting of the HDC, which would be closed, which would be would just not occur.
Not happen. Okay. Any discussion?
So, there's some religious holidays in here, and there's some government holidays in
Yes.
here. And my issue is that then we're favoring, religions that are probably more common within Franklin, because we probably haven't looked at every religious holiday for, obviously, every religion. So I would definitely just keep the religious holidays,
Which is what we.
the Ash Wednesday and the, some Chet Torah, like for Planning Commission, Historic District Commission. But the federal government holidays of Juneteenth and Columbus Day, I feel like as a government body, we're safe in deciding whether we want to not hold government meetings on federal government holidays. Whereas when we try to work around religious holidays, we're kind of entering the territory of like, who are we determining has a significant religious holiday and what religion is that? And have we looked at all these different religions? And I just don't want to walk that line. So I would propose not to hold government body meetings on Juneteenth and Columbus Day, which are federal government holidays, and not to collapse the religious holidays with the federal government holidays.
So just to be clear though, I actually don't know what I think the only meeting that is being adjusted is January 8th, and that is agnostic of religious holidays or federal holidays. The red is just denoting that there is a meeting in conflict with that thing, which is what we previously discussed. So the only thing that I would say is that we could just remove
Oh, yes.
the notations
Yep.
of that, right?
Yeah, for
Yep.
sure. They're not
That's, the
necessary.
red is just here because it
They were
it
just
was.
pointed
it was
Yeah, just an
asked.
identifier, for
Pointed
sure,
out.
for
Yep.
sure, yeah.
But that's an excellent point, yes. The red will be removed from the schedule in its final form.
We have had members where the meeting date fell on a significant Jewish holiday, and we've, out of courtesy to them, because we wanted them to come to the council meeting,
Yeah.
agreed to change it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I think that was, what I call was the intention
Right,
of
that's
right.
the
safer.
discussion, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It
to
wasn't
say we want to
necessary equate
accommodate.
the two.
Exactly.
Yeah, yep, thank you, Pam.
My only thought on the federal holidays is we're a body that meets on Mondays, and Mondays are federal holidays. So,
We also ran into the logistical, wasn't there a logistical issue that ultimately led us to just have?
I mean, the
sticky
charter
Mondays?
says we're supposed to meet on the second Monday. We start getting into issues. As we've done on Indigenous Peoples' Day, as we did on Veterans, I think that the fact that we meet is not disrespectful of them. And I think the fact that we take this opportunity to acknowledge the existence of those events, even gives greater credence to them. So I just think we're gonna get down a real slippery slope if, just because something falls on a federal holiday, which technically the federal holidays go on during the day, we're meeting in the evening. I think, as you said with the religious holidays, I think short of like the office, like administratively, we can't actually operate, that we just have our days are our days, and if somebody is unable to make that meeting because of a particular religious or cultural or federal belief, then that person just can't be at that meeting.
I have a question. In the charter, it says something, and differentiates between excused absences versus non-excused absences. Can we possibly agree that if, to your point, if someone, does not attend for a religious or government holiday, that's an excused absence, or no?
Yeah, I mean, the charter says that they were absences that were not excused. And yes, a religious
considered
holiday would
excused.
certainly be, in my mind, an ample reason to not be able to perform your duties.
Because of a religious reason, you can't be here, that is an excuse.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we don't,
No, as long as I know,
Okay.
then I can inform everyone else.
Perfect.
So it's excused.
okay.
And those are 3 consecutive regular meetings.
I don't want to undermine the observation of any holidays
Absolutely.
for
Right.
people, and I want them to be free to celebrate and observe it in the manner in which they find fit. So if you excuse those absences, that
Yes, we will.
helps me.
And the other bodies are not bound by charter like we are. So if there was
Okay.
a substantial conflict, those bodies, with proper notice,
We could
do have the ability to reschedule, obviously subject to yours and Dana's and Susan's availability, but they're not charter bound.
Really, the only issue is Columbus Day or Indigenous People Day, because for ZBA, we may not even have a meeting.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went through it as well, and there weren't any other
And I appreciate you
conflicts.
identifying these ahead of time so we can make a thoughtful decision about the meetings, and we can express our thinking to the public so they know.
So if I can get a motion to adopt the meeting dates and, well, not the time, just the meeting dates for the Village Council, Planning Commission, HDC, and ZBA as proposed. A second? Second, Angelina. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed? All right, we have our dates.
Mr. President, since we're not taking any action on the code of conduct, or the code of ethics, we could always.
Yeah, excellent thought. Great code of ethics you put together.
Thank you.
My only comment were 3 typographical errors, so I'll shoot you those comments.
Cool.
Let's each review it again. Let's bring it back next month. Good thing to have. I hope that we're all following those anyways, but to have it articulated in front of us and in our booklet can't hurt.
Yep.
So, great idea.
Great, I like
Yep.
that.
It was awesome, well-written, like I said, so let's move that on to next meeting, and we can take action on it then. Next item is our new business. We had some different bids that came in to replace the furnaces underneath this room. And I'm gonna open it up to the board, but this is one of those areas where we defer to you guys
Yeah.
to do your job. It seems like you vetted them out. You're gonna be much closer to this than us, and frankly, whatever you recommend, I'm probably gonna.
Just to give some background, so it's chilly in here tonight, but
I was just about to say, it's so cold.
Normally, it's freezing in this room right now. It's almost unusable. We have to keep it shut from the rest of the building. So this is definitely an emergency issue. We have to get it replaced. There was a leak in the heat exchange for the furnace that serves this room particularly, and there are 2 furnaces here at Village Office. There are 3 furnaces over at the PD. All of them are at the end of life. We're looking at 22, 23 plus years. And so when we found the leak in the heat exchange and had to turn this off, we had 3 different companies come out and bid. The recommendation that we're making tonight is for Air Connex, which I can say that honestly, when we started the process, we had worked with Sun Heating and Cooling in the past. We've always had really positive experiences, and I think we all just sort of assumed that we would continue doing that, but Air Connex really brought in the best bid that we could see. They're doing a couple of things for us. So before the furnace broke, we had it priced to clean the ducts in this building, because that has never been done. They're filthy. The cost to do that is about $1,600 in itself. Air Connex is going to, they worked duct cleaning into their bid and will clean out the ducts with the installation of the new furnaces. Another thing that they were one of the only companies of the 3 bidders that were cognizant of the fact that we need a new chimney liner. That is a requirement, it's a safety requirement, and for me administering this right away, I'm like, well, that's one contractor who understands what it's like to work in a historic building and knows that this is a requirement and needs to be taken care of. But regardless, they came in at great bids. They're going to work with us over at the PD. PD is going to have some thermostats replaced, but only where it's necessary. So administration's recommendation is to go with the lowest bidder with the best services, which of these 3 was Air Connex, to replace 2 furnaces here at Village Hall and 3 furnaces over at the PD.
Okay. Looks like you vetted them out pretty well. It was a pretty organized chart you gave us. Anybody have any thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah. My only experience is buying a furnace for my house, an old house. But I wonder, would you explain the difference between a Filtrete type and and whatever the Sun product was? Oh, a 2-stage and a 90 kBTU. 2-stage, I understand, the fan runs all the time, and then it pops up when the thermostat requires it to heat the building. I don't know how the other ones run, but given this is a leaky building anyway, what are your thoughts around the type of furnace and which would be better for this building?
So that's an excellent question, and I'm not a heating and cooling person. So we actually had Bill, our building official, who knows this building and is very familiar, look through each of these, talk to each contractor. In his opinion, he really felt like the 90 kBTU was the best product that was proposed, but that also came with a different bid on there. So I can't really speak to the specifics of the different furnaces, but I can say that we did do our due diligence in the sense that we had our building official review each and give his recommendation as well, which was for the Air Connex.
Okay, thank you.
My just comment is, I appreciate you giving us the bids. I appreciate you giving us the chart. I think that getting 3 bids is aligned with like fair and open competition. I'll stay in my lane. I don't know what furnaces are supposed to do. But I would ask that we like also start building this into our budget too, like any other things that we'll need, like, because these are old buildings, and then talking to chief and being like, are you seeing anything? You know, because if they were both like 20 plus years old, like, we probably could have expected this, you know, because you know what end of life is for a furnace. Like everyone in their house knows, like, oh, I'm gonna have to replace my roof in 5 years, I'm gonna have to replace my furnace in 5 years. So just having the stuff on our radar I think is great. And so I appreciate, you coming in and like addressing this right away, because we want our village office and our police station to be welcoming places, and they do serve the public and are open to the public.
I think that's an excellent point, and as we can see in our last budget, which definitely occurred before I was here, where we start with that capital planning, that is just gonna have to be a piece that continues to take precedent and focus and grow over the years as we continue to see more and more capital needs that are coming through. And definitely when we get to that portion of budgeting, things like, you know, where are we at for the life cycle of certain infrastructure will be taken into accountability, absolutely. Because to your point, I mean, had we been running a really tight budget year, had we not had any ARPA funds, this is a huge expense that would have had to come out of nowhere. It pretty much would have taken away the entirety of the capital funds that we had saved. So it actually, knock on wood, ended up being perfect timing to take care of this, but I think it's who of us to really be cognizant of the fact of how quickly that can happen.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to accept the recommendations of the staff and for a purchase of an Airconics furnace system.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. The next item on our agenda is consideration for a land division and combination application for 32635 Franklin Road. So this, I'm going to give a brief introduction and then I'm going to say something on this. So this is the two residents that are doing what would typically be called boundary adjustment. So it's a land division from one person's property and taking that property that they purchased and adding it onto the other person's lot. This particular application between the two neighbors, Alex and his wife Stephanie and Cassius and Jackie, they asked me as an attorney to assist them in preparing the documentation for their purchase and sale. So although I have no conflict of interest on this matter, I think as just a matter of course, I'm going to recuse myself from taking action, although I'll still sit here and help assist, but I'm not going to participate in the discussion and will abstain from voting on this. So Pam, if you want to go ahead and just if you have any.
From top already. You thought you were just seat filler.
Just a seat filler.
You pulled a fast one out.
Right.
Do you want me to move so you can take it
No. Okay, so thank you, and I think we will rely on you as a resource for this discussion. Who, were you part of this as well?
Yep, and this is
You or
already.
David, give us a back, just give us context for why, and we've seen the diagrams. What, you know, what is the exchange that's going to be taking place, and what do you need from the council to vote affirmatively?
So tonight in front of you, you have this lot split that has already been reviewed and approved, and recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. So they've spent some time with this. And attached to my memo here, you can see a memo from our planning consultant, Chris Duzen, that outlines the parcel split and provided those diagrams. Now, I think I will, David, if you wouldn't mind talking to the position of the property that, of where that falls between the two parties there. I know that it's all taking place right here, straight across the green, outside of the Drake's facility. And it's my understanding that their Drakes are going to be splitting a portion of their lot to be absorbed by, which will then be absorbed and become parcel A.
So real quick question is, so we have parcel A, parcel B, outlet A. Was outlot A originally considered one parcel with parcel B? David? That's
They're all,
directly.
they're all one tax ID number right now.
Okay, so it's all one tax ID
Correct.
number,
Yep.
and we'd be moving the portion that's being purchased over to the tax ID number of parcel A.
Correct, and then they each get their
Yes.
own tax ID, new tax ID number.
Two
Yes.
new tax
Two
IDs.
tax IDs.
Yes.
So would there be four? I was a little confused by the letter.
No, there'll be
So
two
it's
parcels as a result of.
Two new parcels.
Correct.
Okay, not four parcels. Two.
Correct.
Okay.
But only 2 lots. It will result in 2 lots.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Right now, Alex and Stephanie have a square parcel, and Jackie and Cassius have an L.
L.
And essentially, they're loping off almost all of the L except for the little part between the line and the dot, dot, dot. So all of that outlot A, and the reason why it's not all of outlot A is because the little between the line and the dot, dot, dot is the balance of outlot A. So a portion of outlot A will stay as part of parcel B, and then the remainder will become part of parcel A. So Alex and Stephanie will now have a deeper property, which would allow them ability to, which now changes their rear setbacks. And Jackie and Cassius still have this parcel, which operates their business, and the little, as Chris mentioned in his memo, the dot, dot, dot is parking lot. And Cassius and Jackie also own lot 132, which is sort of that shaped corner parcel, which is, again, a separate tax ID number, completely separate plat from lot 15 and lot 14, and not a subject to this discussion.
Okay, so, one, fully support it. Two, are we able to take a vote separate of this vote to move, and maybe we want to get their input, but move the R3, the zoned R3 to commercial as noted by the planning commission? Because it makes sense that we would just say, now we have new tax IDs, it's being used for commercial purposes.
I mean, it would have to be rezoned. It's a rezoning we could initiate on our own, and assuming that the Drakes wouldn't probably
Do the
object
parties
to it.
want it rezoned?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is we can go back to the Drakes and ask them, but I think that,
But that's our purview.
yeah, right.
Theirs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and to just make this small sliver C1 in the future seems quite appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that I had thought the same thing when I was reading the summary. We can't do them both at the same time, but I would support making an action to do that very
Yeah.
thing, just to clean up loose ends
Right,
in that
exactly.
area. Okay. Any other questions from anybody about this?
This is just for, if it's not too time intensive, I would love for you to write, the planning commissioners and how they voted, not just like it was recommended by planning, just because I like to read like dissents. And see like, was it unanimous or was it not? Just so I can understand like, was it a close call or was it not? I mean, I support this, but I'm just thinking for future things, saying this is the recommendation of planning. Was it 4-3? Was it 7-0? Like, to me, that's important to see like, was it a tight issue? And
Other things we should be considering.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as put, yes, for you guys to say, is there other things to be considering? I can definitely put what votes are.
just because like when I
won't-
read this, I was like, oh, I want to go back on to the webpage, and I had like 300 pages to review. I just didn't have enough time.
Yep. I think that I can absolutely do that. I won't put any context with it, but I will tell you how people voted. If you'd like more context or to make that decision, that I would think, because I don't want to be seen as,
just like how
influencing
you
that, but
did-
just telling how the votes went.
Kind of
we
like
can
how
do
you did with
that.
CDBG.
Yeah.
Like, what have we done in the
Go ahead,
past?
Dana.
There was 5 people there, they all voted for it, 2 were absent.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. And in the future, I'll include those in those memos for you.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion?
Do we want Al to, because he's on the planning, or we don't need anyone?
We got 5 too.
Okay.
This is pretty,
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward.
yeah.
Okay, then are you ready to vote? All right, can we have a motion to approve the, did you write a resolution?
I did, but it's long, you know, when I'm looking at it, I don't know that
Okay,
you
can
need.
we have a motion to approve the lot split between the parcels identified in the summary?
I'll move to approve the lot split and the parcels approved in the summary.
Can we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, David abstains, and thank you.
So we needed every vote in that
Yeah.
case?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Okay,
We did.
I just want to make sure, okay.
Right on.
So that was,
Okay,
Yeah.
turning it back to David.
Passes. All right, thanks, Pam. Next item is a demolition application for a home at 25815 Franklin Park Drive for the plans to construct a new home. I don't know if anyone, oh, wow, you've waited this whole time for that? Oh, my goodness. Sorry about that.
No problem.
You got to learn a little about municipal government.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, so. Yeah, I'm James DeRocher, Custom Homes by DeRocher, the applicant. Here for any questions that you might have.
They already have the, I can see, they already have the home designed, right?
Yep.
Permitted already? Have you already gone through the building
Our
permit?
permit is in.
Oh, wow.
So we've been dealing with Bill.
Great.
It sounds like pending this, we
Yep.
get a new building permit.
and this is in the historic district?
No, it is not.
Okay, so that was my question. Why did the Franklin Historic District Commission look at this?
It's a good question. It's a very strange Franklin thing. So
All demolition goes through them.
all demolition permits go to HDC for approval.
Is that per charter?
It's
Per ordinance.
per ordinance, and it's been like that for a long period of time. So it is very curious that a board, of which you're not part of the district, do review and approve those, but that is per ordinance. All demolition permits need to be approved by the HDC.
I thought it was a non-contiguous property for some reason, just by virtue of it being here, but it's
There's
not.
ordinance 1460.07.
So this could be changed.
Yeah, without going to a vote of the people.
I'm just thinking of the resources it takes to hold a meeting for something that's not within the purview of
Or
a
the
commission.
delays to the.
Well, and it's also a
staff
delay.
time.
It's a delay
Yeah.
for a developer too, to have to
Yeah.
go through another board.
And it was so funny, I'm like, Franklin Park
We
Drive.
applied in September, so.
I thought, I was like, is there a carve out for this one property
Yeah.
that's historic? Like, I was thinking that your actual
Yeah.
home was historic.
Yeah.
It's
When
not.
did
Let's
you-
make a note of that. I'm assuming that somewhere way back when, there was a council of ours that had grave concerns about residents tearing
Yeah.
out houses that might have a minuscule chance of having some historic nature to it. But not sure this council falls in that.
No, mental note. This was the first one that I've come across since I've been in Franklin, and so this is the first time it was brought to my attention that that was guided by the
He's
ordinance.
still positive and just
Yeah, just need to get going.
Yeah, okay. I move to approve, oh, sorry.
Running time for winter.
We got a motion, second from Abby. Any further discussion?
A question for you, when do you plan to proceed?
Wednesday morning, unless that's what this is. We'll have a permit from Bill and we'll be going, the excavator already got dropped off today, so. Pending this, we're good to go.
You got that before you left.
All right, so this is the permit,
I do believe so.
then tomorrow.
I like that.
Thank you for coming and for being patient. Do you
Of
have
course,
any
thank you guys.
questions of us?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right. From my perspective, the forms are all signed, everything looks good.
Yeah, the checklist was full. We Thank you for
All the checklists
that.
are done,
Thank
so.
you.
Okay.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, so we have a motion, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good
Thank
luck
you.
to you and your clients.
Thank you.
Our last item is a community, or I'm sorry, a civic event permit for the Chabad House of Bingham Farms to host the Art Menorah Lighting for 2024. They have that scheduled for December 29th, and that would take place in the same spot, right out in front of their, did we do it in front of the library, or
We
did we
did.
do in front of the library? Yep.
And that is on a Sunday.
And it's a wonderful event if anybody wants to participate. And if I can get a motion to consider their permit,
Motion to consider,
or motion to approve, I should say.
motion to approve.
I will second the motion.
Further discussion?
My question, if this is from the library, is it our property?
Yes.
Okay, and then, just, I was looking at this form, I was thinking maybe we should add contact information for the applicant, because I'm like, if I wanted to call and ask them about this event or have any questions, or even us as the village, like there's no email, there's no phone number spot, and there's no address or of the applicant himself. So like, it's just, I think could be
Those are all good
updated.
comments.
Yeah.
You would think those are all things that would be on here.
I thought you were on there.
Yeah.
No, those are great comments, Angelina.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We voted?
No.
Nope,
We didn't
not
vote.
yet.
All right, sorry.
There we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Folks, we are not going to make a precedent of 10:20.
No.
Okay?
Oh,
First meeting out of the gate, not happy about that. A lot of items on the agenda. Appreciate everybody's patience today. Appreciate our applicants hanging in there. I'm going to adjourn our meeting at 10:17.